This is the Troll Patrol. Live. With Justin Freakin.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol Live. It's a freaking Canadian election day. Welcome in. Holiday, Princess Kimberly, Warlord. We are on early because we're going to get the news in. We're going to cover the Canadian election. We're going to do all that shit, and then we're going to do live music Monday right after the stream. Motherfuckers. I'm feeling some kind of weird today. Welcome to Canada. I'm not high enough for this shit. I can go ahead and tell you that. Well, thank you, anonymously. Cool like the Fonzie. What's Fonzie? Real cool. I put the sunglasses on for no other reason than they were just sitting here, and I think they look really good on me. But I got pretty eyes, so that's why I don't wear them on stream that often. Good evening. Welcome. We got Canadian election coverage. Results are going to start trickling in, I think, in an hour. I think the polls close in an hour. Soup, welcome in. Good evening. Spain, Portugal, parts of France experiencing a gigantic power outage. State of emergency has been declared in at least Spain. India, Pakistan on the brink of war. Putin, Ukraine, ceasefire in place for at least 3 days. We're going to hear from Trump on who he thinks will win the Canadian election. We're going to hear from average Canadians about who they feel is going to win the Canadian election. You want to talk about some U.S. military incompetence? A fighter jet just rolled off of an aircraft carrier, sunk into the ocean. That's what? $40 million of taxpayer money just bloop. Thanks, Navy. Trump has opened a new nightclub in Washington, D.C., where a membership will get you access to members of the administration. You know, if only we had a stalwart at the position of oversight in Congress, maybe we could get something taken care of. Apparently, the old-ass Democrat who had cancer that beat out AOC to be the chair of the Oversight Committee, or the top-ranking Democrat on the Oversight Committee, he's stepping down now after what, like 2 months on the job? Says he's not going to run for re-election, and is apparently appointing his own successor, and it's a 70-year-old, also piece of shit Democrat. Thanks, Obama. Byronic, welcome in. Good evening. Here is your meme of the day. Breaking: the White House displays Republicans who made news for child sex crimes in 2025 on the White House lawn. Psych, that's as likely as Donald Trump declassifying the Epstein files. Ah ha ha ha. I am not high enough. Also, I apologize for my attitude last night. It might have just been that I was smoking shitty weed all day. I got off stream, made dinner, smoked a bowl of the good shit that I got. Felt fine. Watched some prestige TV. Got to watch The Righteous Gemstones, The Rehearsal, Last of Us, and started in on the last season of Roseanne. Or I mean, The Conners, which is all about Roseanne, ironically. So that's how I spent my evening. How was I nearly self-aware? What? I'm never self-aware. Now that's not happening. But I actually got on with producer Dave at like 3 a.m. Some of you may have seen that. That happened. That was a thing that happened. And we watched Charlie Kirk and Madison Star Moon. War Machine, welcome in. The stream was fucking up. Everything was fucking up. I was in a bad mood. The stream started fucking up. So I apologize for everything. Warlord keeps like trying to brag about his internet. Sent like his internet stats. I'm like, bro, I got like 10 times the internet you do. Bragging about your internet when like I fucking demolish it. And you like had 77 megs. I had like 875 megs. It literally was like 10 times the internet that you have. Come the fuck on, Warlord.
You take your 33 and a third chance minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8 and a third chance of winning.
It's not my internet. Well, not usually my internet. It's been the modem. My modem is fucked up. They sent me a new one, and I can't even get it to work. And I haven't even had time to fuck with that shit. So I should probably get on that. I've had their modem for like 2 weeks. I haven't been able to get it working. Anyway, what other news was I talking about? A fighter jet rolled off of an aircraft carrier. We got an Indiana Republican, the lieutenant governor of the state, defends the 3/5 compromise. Representative Grothman in Congress says he wants Trump to go to the next phase. That kind of sounds like a final solution kind of deal. MAGA doxed the Garcia family. The U.S. deporting citizens, despite the fact that Tom Homan today at a White House press briefing said, "No, we're not deporting U.S. citizens." 2 different judges have been arrested. Bill Maher is upset about Larry David comparing his dinner with Trump to a dinner with Hitler. We've got video of the wife of the bassist of Weezer when the cops shot her. There might be a serial killer in the Northeast. I think 8 bodies have now been found. We've got video of a kidnapping that was stopped by a bystander, and a man hid Easter eggs around town stuffed with marijuana, posted on Facebook about a scavenger hunt. All that and a lot freaking more tonight on the Troll Patrol Live. Good evening. I've got fiber optic. That's like the thing that I look for most when I move into a new place. It's like it must have access to fiber optic. And that's what, like, when I was on the phone with the guy, I'm like, you have to fix my issue. This is the entire reason that, like, I was looking in this area for an apartment so I could have fiber optic. It is not supposed to drop on me ever. The internet company does not have the best reviews, though. But it seems that it is the equipment, not the internet. Also, light one up, tip one back. Let's check in with CBC News. What is going on?
He talked about the one thing that Mark Carney's been talking about, which is how to take on Donald Trump with a...
Here in
and for my colleague,
the Canadian election, apparently the Conservatives have won 1 seat.
As is Mark Carney's resume.
So far.
It's clearly showing to voters.
That's the returns we have in.
Business pedigree to back it up.
You can see Con 1 seat.
What we've seen a lot of over the last 2 years, which is 3-word slogans that amount to basically a polarization. And instead you have a person who is a newcomer to politics, who's actually engendering a lot of support by people towards his vision. which I
Okay,
think
let's thank you for that. Let's take another look at this result. One on the board. This is how it goes. It goes slow and then it goes really fast. So as we get a
Well, Lord, welcome in.
Quebec, Ontario, and everything out to Alberta closes. But at the beginning, Newfoundland Labrador gets a lot of time, and so David Cochran's very happy. What can you tell us about this one blue on the board here?
Well, I mean, it is the Central Newfoundland riding. It is where Cliff Small busted through last time and, defeated Scott Sims. His lead there is very small. It's very early polling. Not very small. It's very early. 108 to 30, a 78 vote lead with one of 233 polls reporting. You got big towns, Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor, but a very rural riding. So it's going to take a bit of time before we get true clarity on how this is going to go. But Heather Gillis with CBC Newfoundland and Labrador is standing by in the riding near the Clifford Small campaign. And Heather joins us now. So Heather, what's the latest you're getting from Central Newfoundland?
Okay, well, David, we're outside Clifford Small's campaign, and we just heard a big roar of applause from inside, and that must be that one poll.
One conservative seat so far, just Julie.
Know who Clifford Small is. He's got ties to the fishery. He owns some restaurants. When Pierre Poilievre was campaigning here, he was front and center, of course, because he is the only.
I believe L is Labor.
In our province, he's up against.
So you've got the Green Party.
President of the Medical Association in this province.
What was NDP? National Democratic Party.
Today, the Conservatives are confident that Small.
I do not know what PPC is. Can somebody look up PPC?
Saying that it's close, but the feeling.
T-minus, welcome in. Julie, welcome in.
Clifford Small, they do believe will be reelected in this area, and this is, one seat to watch, because if the Liberals want a majority, well, this place was a long time Liberal riding. Will they flip it back red? And for the Conservatives, if they want to win this election tonight, this is one area that they're going to have to hold on to, or even make.
Oh, well, thank you for digging. I don't wear them very often because I have pretty eyes.
CBC's Heather Gillis outside Cliff Small's campaign.
I love these glasses. I think they look amazing on me.
Small's campaign.
The People's Party of Canada, that is PPC.
Campaign. Some breaking of that, though, in Newfoundland and Labrador. David Brazel.
So the red in the middle there, that's the Labor Party. The Greens,
CBC has
National Democratic Party, I believe. I think I'm saying that right.
It's a super important seat for the Conservatives because, and
I am not hungover on Coke.
Danny Williams scorched the earth for the federal Conservatives in the 2000s with the ABC.
I do have news for tonight, but we're going to keep checking back in with the Canadian election. I am not going to ignore our Canadian friends. You can see that I picked
It's been
Canadian graphics for tonight. Of course, Josephus, of course. This is a political show, not. We focus on U.S. politics, but we do all politics. I try to keep everybody informed, and this is big, and this also has implications in the rest of the world.
That things have been changing, and before the Trump attack.
My roast. Oh, have you heard, my lord? Have you heard? Were you here when I was?
Newfoundland, and they are optimistic about picking up potentially one or two.
It's coming together. I'm not ready to announce it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, Rosie, there was a provincial by-election.
We're close, and I think you guys are going to love the panel.
Near where Cliff Small is, in the Bayvert area. It was a seat the Liberals held, and it swung by 60 points in the by-election to the
Dave will be hosting it.
Trudeau.
Dave is not on the panel. Dave is hosting.
I've known since university was knocking on doors out there, and people were saying, "Oh, I'm voting for Conservatives. I'm going to get rid of Trudeau and get rid of the carbon tax."
So I guess unofficial announcement: the roast of JustinFREAKIN coming at you for my birthday later. I was getting ready to say later this month.
There's no carbon tax now, so you would.
But it's next month. Next month. My birthday's next month.
Of course, the Atlantic provinces and home heating oil had been taken out entirely by Justin.
Hosted by Dave from Echoplex Media, and I will have the panel for you shortly. Some of you that were here the other night know who one of them is.
Well, I'm not so sure about that.
Okay. Tell me more.
No.
Well, my lord, I asked Chainsaw, and he and I went back and forth, and we decided that he was not the right man for the job.
Generally, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
and even in Newfoundland, Mary Shortall, who's the president of the NDP and a former president of the Newfoundland Federation of Labor.
I have got the right men and women for the job.
But if I can just go back to David's numbers and say how much I like them. as a New Democrat. Because I think what's happening...
We have one seat on the board for the Liberals.
May have been worried about a Tory government are starting to see that they might be able to go home and vote for their New Democrat incumbents as the possibility of a Conservative win recedes. And also those who are worried about who's going to face Trump are becoming more and more confident that it's probably going to be Carney. And so, therefore, who's going to keep the banker in check in the House of Commons if you don't re-elect some New Democrats?
Well, that was Jagmeet Singh's closing argument. Jason Kenney, quickly, then I got
one other point about Newfoundland
that
we sometimes forget about. We think about Newfoundland and the fishery, which is historic and important.
It's oil.
But increasingly, it's an oil economy. And
I even watched.
Mr. Paul,
I looked up on Reddit
sector and energy
what people thought was the best Canadian news source.
Canadian oil.
And then I watched some today to kind of see what I thought about their coverage.
I think that there's
and I landed on doing
a gradual
CBC.
shift, focused around those energy.
Does that receive Josephus's approval? I also have.
Dad was one of them. That's why.
This is the Canadian Press over here that's doing this neat little graphic. Smokey, stop fucking with my microphone.
This is the big land. This is where Yvonne Jones had been the incumbent Liberal MP, but her and just about all the other Liberal MPs decided they weren't going to run again.
Of course it was very communist of me.
Replacement is about as good as you're going to get in Labrador. Well-known and successful businessman involved with companies such as Air Labrador and Air Borealis. Ella Wallace is the Conservative there. She is born and raised in Labrador, spent a lot of time working away in Florida and Australia. Moved back
Philip Earl
to work in the family businesses. Currently,
we've got two
Happy Valley Goose Bay. And here
Conservatives on the board now.
Newfoundland again.
I've got to correct myself because it's flipped, right? The Liberals are red, the Conservatives are blue.
Over Lynette Powell, but interestingly, two Conservatives on the board, and where is that second one? Well, here it is in Terra Nova and the Peninsulas. Look.
Well, Josephus is like PBS is one of the best journalistic organizations and used to be the best journalistic organization here.
Also has a strong organizational base within his church, running against Anthony Germain, who is a former CBC broadcaster in both Ottawa and in Newfoundland and Labrador and in China. He is in second place with one of
God damn it, Cat.
polls reporting.
I love this cat, but he wants to be like, he doesn't want to cuddle with me when I want to cuddle. He wants to come over here and be annoying.
Elected. But as David said, very early results out of Newfoundland and Labrador. The next set of results in 13 minutes' time will be from the Maritime provinces, adding another 25 seats up for grabs.
All right, so we're going to check back in with
change quickly.
the CBC here in about 13 minutes.
Wait for more results from Newfoundland.
We've got some international news that we're going to cover before we go back to CBC coverage of the Canadian election. Spain, Portugal, and parts of France experiencing a power outage. A state of emergency has been declared in at least Spain as of an hour ago. Not sure what exactly causes major outage. We're going to go to CNN International for the reporting.
Station in Valencia in Spain that has been hit by a massive power outage that authorities there say is impacting the entire Iberian Peninsula. Let's get straight to our breaking news this hour out of southern Europe. And a massive power outage has knocked out electricity across Spain and Portugal, causing chaos at airports, at train stations, and on the roads. The Portuguese national grid operator says all of the Iberian Peninsula has been impacted and that some parts of France were also affected. CNN's Salma Abdelaziz is in London. Salma.
Hey, Salma.
Chaos and confusion. I think those are absolutely the words of the day. Around midday local time in both
the words of Jim Morrison in a Doors song.
Cities experiencing a complete electricity outage, a complete power outage. We're talking about tens of millions of people now who are experiencing a total blackout. You can see what those images look like there on your screen. That means trains have come to a standstill. That means airports are filled with passengers who simply don't know what to do. This is midday, remember, so schools, businesses, shops, restaurants, all of those, of course, coming to a standstill with people struggling to figure out.
This is earlier in the day for us. This is this morning for us.
Here, Becky, is of course for everyone there. When will the power come back? Authorities say they're scrambling to restore electricity in these places. They simply don't know the cause, though, of what's caused this outage. There are investigations underway, but of course the priority is to bring the power back. It's also unclear how widespread this power outage is. You mentioned those reports that these outages may go as far as France. Then you have to remember just how disruptive this is to daily life. It reports
as far as I know, they're still out.
Are not working. The mayor of Madrid appealing to people to please proceed calmly, to be careful, because that is how much life has come to a standstill. Also reports that mobile services, cell phones, are not working. So you're talking about communications being cut as well. So absolutely right now, for tens of millions of people, there is a sense of scramble, a sense of panic, and no clear answer as
Cause
to
is still unclear,
or why they were even cut in the first place.
Salma, I'm just getting news on parts of southwest.
So the Civil Guard is directing traffic.
Coming into CNN by this power cut, but now focusing on
half of Spain has power again.
As far as we can tell,
full service is expected tomorrow.
West of the country of France, as being briefly impacted by a small power cut. That's a spokeswoman for France's
Central Lisbon has power.
RTE telling CNN on Monday. Obviously, nobody wants to speculate at this point as to what has happened, but certainly this being described in region as exceptional and extraordinary. Again, many questions about why and how long it might take before the power...
They still do not know how this happened.
At this point, your reporting suggests that there is...
This report was from like 8 hours ago on CNN.
No clear answer to either of those questions, and I think also the extent of the issue.
But I'm reading from you, like from the AP an hour ago, they still do not know what caused this.
Why this could reach as deep into Spain. It's also
and power has returned for like
how many industries, how many
the urban sections.
We talked about traffic lights, just being able to cross
Madrid, Lisbon.
Could be dangerous in one of these towns or cities. But you also have to think about hospitals. How are they continuing to provide medical care, if at all, particularly emergency care, if these have been plunged into darkness? You also have to remember, of course, for schools, for children who aren't going to be able to have that electricity and can't even get in touch with their parents potentially. So a lot of fear, a lot of concern, while authorities are scrambling, as you said, to get a hold of what is an unprecedented power outage across
Conservatives
Portugal and
have 2 on the board, liberals 2 on the board.
Let's just hear from...
For the Canadian Parliament.
...of Madrid.
At this moment, it is necessary to keep all roads clear. Traffic lights are currently off, but what is essential is that emergency services can move. We have also closed the tunnels on Street 30, and at the same time, calls to 112, please. Only those that are truly urgent. And if they are not attended to, they can go to police stations and to the fire stations of the City Council of Madrid for assistance.
So a major power outage reported in Spain and Portugal, small power outages in France as well. The extent of this breaking news not clear as of yet. The countries of Spain and Portugal alone have a combined population of something like 50 million. Authorities at this stage then simply calling for calm as they, Salma, work out what is
apparently deploying what would be their equivalent of our National Guard.
Outage might last. Do we have any further information?
Or to direct traffic.
I think what
rescue
you hear
people from trains.
From the mayor of Madrid is absolutely key right now, Becky, which is his concern around emergency services, because of course there will be an overload, if you will, in terms of calls to emergency services, in terms of demands to emergency services. So he's already beginning to understand that, and I'm sure that there is that sense, of course, across both those countries that the emergency services will be strained and they need to reach out and they need to take care of those who are most in need. But again, we don't even know how affected communications are, because we have this indication that cell phones have also been impacted by this power outage. So a lot there that's not even clear yet, because people simply aren't connected at this time. But for those authorities on the ground, the first priority will be restoring power as quickly as possible, particularly providing those emergency services to people who need it, and then figuring out what on earth happened here.
There's still no indication of what happened.
And as you are talking, we are just getting more news into CNN. So let me just read for our viewers what we have from Spain's National Railway Company, who say simply all rail traffic in Spain has now come to a halt. This is from Rente on X. The entire national electricity grid was cut off at 12:30 p.m. local time. That is, if you're watching in the States, 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. That is according to the National Railway Company. It runs more than 1,000 trains a day, transporting nearly 1.5 million passengers across 5,000 journeys. Rente's trains include public rail services that the state considers essential, with a travel fleet that includes high-speed trains.
Julie, we're Americans. We're up our own asses. Ha ha ha.
So as things stand at the moment, CNN reporting that all rail traffic in Spain has come to a halt, according to Spain's National Railway Company. More on this as we get it. We'll let you go and let you get on with talking to your sources and digging for further information. Thank you, Selma.
I have no idea. Maybe it's going to take, maybe they're more concerned with getting it online than they are with diagnosing it. You would think diagnosing the problem would be paramount to getting it back online, but I don't know. That's just me, not all Americans. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Flash, good evening, my friend. Welcome back in. The liberals. Oh, it's changing where they're at. Like, it's changing their position on the thing here. That's what threw me off. So when the conservatives had the lead, the blue block was over here. They're not just stationary. So I was like, what? It changed on me. Liberals up 3-2 currently in the Canadian election. We're about 4 minutes from the next polls closing.
Yeah. There are those who are happy because we've delivered things that Canadians need.
Yeah, and yet that message was hard for that
hard to
message
get it through in this
sure.
campaign.
For sure. Okay, thank you for that.
We're gonna come back to it in about 3 minutes. We've got a little more news I want to get in before we go to the polls closing. Another one of those things that Americans, or at least me being up my own ass, may not be aware of exactly what is going on is the country of Pakistan and India are apparently on the brink of all-out war. Military incursions by India apparently imminent after an attack happened in Kashmir.
A show of strength by India's Navy, test-firing missiles as its forces prepare for an anticipated strike on Pakistan. On the ground in Indian-administered Kashmir, troops have intensified search operations and have destroyed the homes of alleged local militants. But India's government blames Pakistan for orchestrating last week's deadly attack here. Today, the local parliament in Indian-administered Kashmir passed a resolution condemning the killings of the 26 tourists.
The people who did this, they say they did it for our benefit. But did we tell them we want this attack? Did we tell them to kill these 26 people in our name? None of us support this attack.
In Pakistan, over the weekend at a graduation ceremony for army cadets, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif repeated denials of involvement in the attack.
Our eastern neighbor continues a pattern of exploitation, leveling baseless allegations.
Sharif also warned that Pakistan's army would respond to any Indian strike.
Why is he speaking English? Pakistan doesn't speak English, do they? That's not their official language. Is that a message to the West?
So far, the most serious action taken by India is suspending a crucial treaty sharing water with Pakistan. Around 80% of Pakistan's...
Apparently, English, it's not their primary language, but it is one of their official languages. Urdu and English is what they speak in Pakistan, so learn something new every day.
Agriculture depends on 3 rivers flowing from India. As of yet, there's been no change in water levels. But here, by the banks of the river Jhelum, Pakistani farmers know the impact of any...
Oh, you shut up! Warlord, your country is probably the reason why they speak English.
Reduction in supply would be devastating.
If the water is stopped, our crops will be badly damaged. All these green crops you can see here are grown using the water from the river. God forbid the water stops. Our land depends on this water. Our families depend on it.
Farmers here are already facing the effects of climate change and less rainfall. Stopping or reducing the water supply would be a mammoth task for India.
I didn't realize they were going to do this whole countdown and everything over here. So we got 3, 2, 1. Polls closed in the next district. I don't even it's the Maritime Islands that they said. Well, I thought because they were doing the countdown, I thought it was going to give us a deluge in numbers. It did not. Boo.
Our families depend on it.
Farmers here are already facing the effects of climate change and less rainfall. Stopping or reducing the water supply would be a mammoth task for India, but it's one it's threatened to do before. 8 years ago, after another militant attack, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi first raised the spectre of cutting off the water supply here, warning that water and blood cannot flow together. Now Pakistani officials say that any attempt to divert or block off the water here will be treated as tantamount to an act of war.
That would be, it's an act of genocide is what it is.
A warning that weaponizing water could lead Pakistan's ally China to take similar action against India.
India in itself is a low riparian country when it comes to the Brahmaputra, China. And how the whole region would take that, it would push 2 billion people to the challenge of food security, unemployment, and if it is implemented, it would create a climatic chaos.
India feels Pakistan must be made to pay. There's no doubt it has in the past supported Kashmiri militants. Neither of these nuclear-armed neighbours now wants a war, but neither will they allow any aggression to go unresponded to.
I was singing Kashmir in my head the entire time. Polls officially closing in Canada.
Won this running. She's about 1,000
the next set is
time around, so she has come close before.
Precinct.
Of course, famous for the ground game. We'll see how that goes. Will they be celebrating with the wine or crying in their beer later tonight?
Conservatives up 3-2 currently.
Affordability, like half-price wine. CBC's Tom Murphy. Thank you very much. Sorry you can't partake, Tom. That's disappointing. Rosie, back to you.
No wine from the United States, though, I'm sure. 343 seats in total up for grabs in this election. Because the electoral map has changed, 172 is that magic number for a majority. That's what everyone will be watching for tonight. Not only who forms government, but what kind of government you have decided to elect this time round. Let's bring you some pictures that came in just.
So for our American friends that may not be aware, it's whoever wins the most seats in Parliament.
In there with his wife and 2 daughters.
Their party leader becomes the prime minister.
Probably a little bit nervous about how things are going to unfold tonight. Oh look, there I am on my screen, on his screen. How lovely. Glad he's tuning in with us. Yves-François Blanchet is in Montreal. He is also watching results as they begin to roll in. probably not watching CBC. I'm going to guess he's watching Radio-Canada, hopefully. He's there with some of his staff waiting to see how things are going to unfold.
Yeah, not watching CBC.
And of course, we'll bring in more pictures and visuals of leaders as they watch results roll in.
Does he have some kind of stake in the other channel?
For so many parties tonight, critical night for the country, and lots of questions tonight about what will happen to the parties that are not the two main parties, and that includes the Bloc Québécois, as you saw there. We heard from 3 of the leader headquarters. We're also at 2 others, the Bloc Québécois and the Green Party, and Rafi Boudjikanian has been following the Bloc through the campaign. He's in Montreal tonight. Rafi, what are you hearing?
Well,
The
Rosie,
Bloc
I would say
Québécois?
I think François Blanchet was actually watching TVA, not Radio-Canada. Basically, this has been a challenging campaign for the Bloc. They tend to do well when they can talk about
Josephus, explain.
identity issues. Think of the language protection law or the secularism law that this province has. But this has not been the kind of campaign where they've had the space to do that. Instead, they've had to try to muscle in on this national debate about who's best placed to tackle U.S. President Donald Trump and the threats he represents. François Blanchet has tried doing that. He's tried presenting a platform that's all about
Hey, who the fuck is this?
economic interests, and he's tried to.
Is that the
Liberal Mark Carney is not.
Is that the B there next to the Green Party?
On to predict a Carney victory, and then has tried saying,
The Bloc Québécois.
vote for me so I can defend you guys from
What's the Bloc Québécois?
government. Now,
What do they believe
it
in?
was a very different picture. Think of Justin Trudeau's unpopularity. Last September, the Bloc won that by-election.
Numbers starting to change. We have 6-3 with the
Thinking about forming
Liberals
official opposition. That's very different than now.
in the lead.
Aspiring to hold a minority parliament to account as the party that holds the balance of power, and they might be able to pull that off even if they lose some seats tonight, and that would be an argument Blanchet could then take to his supporters and say
6-3. We're still very early in the night. The results are expected pretty early. We should know by like 10 o'clock,
So he hasn't abandoned us quite
if
yet.
not earlier.
That's Rafi in Montreal. I believe Adrienne Arsenault has some results from PEI.
Indeed. We have some of the first numbers in from Malpeque. Let's have a quick look-see and see what's going on there.
172 is the magic number.
Heath MacDonald with a lead of 14 over Jamie Foxx, who is a former MLA. Just 1 out of 97 polls.
Jamie Foxx really let himself go.
To go. Worth noting that Pierre Poilievre spent some time on Prince Edward Island, quite determined to try to move the needle. We'll see if he does.
Okay.
No, Julie.
Ireland, but you can see there on the bottom of your screen.
Polls have not closed on the West Coast again with like
6-3, but again, early results as
these are like the first poll closings
Catherine Cullen.
on the east side of the country.
Bay, Mike Callaway there in an early lead. One thing that makes this riding particularly interesting, Rosemary, there were 2 Liberals that wanted to run here, both Mike Callaway and Jaime Batiste, who wound up running in Cape Breton, Canso, and Antigonish.
That's one of the reasons why we kind of expect it early, because we're expecting the Conservatives to get blown out in the east.
Callaway was going to be the one to run in this riding. Off to a healthy start. One other fun fact about Sydney Glace Bay, home to, you knew I was going to say this, it is home to the world's biggest fiddle, also known as the Big Fiddle, 18 meters tall.
The Big Fiddle.
Just one thing you can check out.
Well, you know what's going to happen is at the end of this night, everyone will have booked holidays to Atlantic Canada, because this is when we have a little more time to talk about all the great things out there.
Wonderful time to talk about Canada.
That's right.
Light one up and tip one back for Atlantic Canada.
That I'm covering. Look, Rosie, as Rafi said, the Yves-François Blanchet decision desk has already projected a Mark Carney win tonight. We're not ready to do that because we've only just now got the last 2 ridings in Newfoundland and Labrador reporting. Like, these are the ones in and around the St. John's area. This, of course, is St. John's East, as we were talking about. Joanne.
That's what you're seeing the polls.
Running for the Liberals.
We're closing in the islands on the east.
Everything is early right now. 2 of 197 polls reporting. She's leading David Brazel, a former cabinet minister and leader of the provincial Conservative.
That's why we're going to do news and come back to Canadian results.
And this is Cape Spear.
A little later. Cape Fear. Oh, not Cape Fear. I'm sorry. That is Cape Spear. While tensions are escalating in Pakistan and India, apparently we have an end to the war in Ukraine, at least momentarily. A ceasefire has been announced by Vladimir Putin.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is declaring a 3-day ceasefire with Ukraine. President Trump wants that to be made permanent. Caroline Shively has the latest.
Yeah, Flash, you flipped me out earlier.
Vladimir Putin is calling for a 3-day ceasefire in Ukraine, but not for another 10 days. Putin declared May 8th should begin a 72-hour pause to mark a major holiday celebrating the Soviet victory in World War II.
It is a critical week because we're running out of patience. And I think what it really comes down to, do both sides really want a peace deal?
Ukrainians say if Putin wants to stop the attacks, he should do it immediately. Ukraine has accepted U.S. calls for a 30-day stop to the fighting, something Putin has rejected.
The president has made it clear he wants to see a permanent ceasefire first to stop
Where was that permanent ceasefire in Gaza?
Met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky while both men were at the Vatican for the Pope's funeral over the weekend. Trump administration officials have touted the short meeting as a success, but are floating the idea that a final deal will leave some Ukrainian territory in Russian hands.
We need to be grown-ups and realistic here. In any negotiated end to a war, both sides get something and both sides have to give something up.
He sent a very clear message to Vladimir Putin. You hold out long enough, I'm going to walk away from Ukraine and it's all yours.
On Monday, Ukraine's foreign ministry said the country wants a minerals deal with the U.S. signed as soon as possible, one of the key demands that Trump has made of Zelensky. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox 32, Chicago.
Caroline! I'm sorry. That was horrible. That's what goes through my head anytime I hear the Caroline. Trump was asked earlier today who he thinks will win the Canadian election. Let's hear his response. This was in the White House earlier today as he was signing executive orders and taking questions from reporters.
Thank you for the question.
Oh, this wasn't today. It was April 23rd.
An election coming up.
Damn it, Forbes.
For that, and what do you think the results with respect to Canada? With the negotiations? Oh, I don't want to predict other nations' elections. It's tough enough doing this one. Look, I love the Canadian people. I like Canada. But
no, you don't.
It's costing us $200 billion a year to support Canada. $200 billion. And I say, why are we doing that? You know what? We can make our own cars. We have more energy than they do. We have more energy than anybody in the world. We don't need their lumber, obviously. We have more lumber. We have a lot of lumber. We have a lot of everything that they sell us. But in particular,
we do?
They took a large percentage of the car making, and I want to bring it back to this country. I really don't want cars from Canada. So when I put tariffs on Canada, they're paying 25%, but that could go up in terms of cars. When we put tariffs on, all we're doing is we're saying we don't want your cars in all due respect. We want really to make our own cars, which is...
Oh, he's always signing executive orders.
Record levels in a very near future because of all the plants, the car plants that are being built. And I'd rather see them made in Michigan and made in South Carolina and made in different...
The Zuron Elite. Man, you could say your name so many different ways.
States, and we have some that aren't car
These Ron Elite.
Making states. And that's what I want to see. At the same time, I want to help Canada.
The Zero Nellite.
Nice. I was a couple of very nice.
Oh shit! Yeah, welcome in, Zero. Welcome in, my friend. Glad to have you here.
In their election.
I like to do fun with names sometimes. I've had a lot of fun with Tyler X's name. Krill. You're another person I've had fun with their name. Good evening, friends. How are you? I'm glad to have you here. Smokey, stop hitting my microphone. All right. Now we got the cat settled in. He's corralled. Canadians asked how they're feeling about this election. Go to Reuters here. How are Canadians feeling on Election Day?
Everyone has to get together, and even individual Canadians are doing what they can by shopping non-American and showing how ridiculous these policies and his language has been about Canada. So yes, I don't think though it needs, to me climate change is affecting the whole world, and this madman will hopefully be gone in 4 years.
This election, I'll be voting for someone who will help protect Canada's sovereignty and someone who will defend mental health care that will help increase access to mental health care.
Well, I think, it's whatever Trump is doing is not good for Canada, but it's bringing everyone together, like buying Canadian products, flying to somewhere else in Canada. So it's good for local businesses and stuff like that. That's the spin side of whatever Trump's doing.
And boy, is it ever hurting us. Trump said we were getting taken advantage of. However, I've got proof that maybe we were the ones taking advantage of people here. Our port's now drying up. As the dude just said, it's a boon to the local Canadian economy and local businesses. Trump tariffs prompt slump in shipments to U.S. ports. The number of vessels scheduled to arrive at the port of Los Angeles next week is down by almost a third on the year. Donald Trump's increased. I saw a port in Portland that was barren. It was pretty much empty. Donald Trump's increasingly erratic trade war has triggered a slump in shipments to the U.S. most important ports amid the growing risk of a recession in the world's largest economy. In the latest signs of the U.S. president's tariff policies rattling the economy, figures showed the number of vessels scheduled to arrive at the port of Los Angeles next week down by almost a third from the same period a year ago. According to the data compiled from ocean carrier manifest records by Port Optimizer, the number of arrivals this week is on track to be down by about 11% on the same week last year. Separate figures reported by the Financial Times from Vision, a data provider, show the container bookings from China to the U.S. fell by almost half by mid-April, compared with a year earlier. Economists have warned that Trump's trade battles will lead to a significant slowdown in global trade and come with a cost for U.S. consumers by pushing up prices and raising the chances of a recession. Washington has imposed a 145% tariff on Chinese imports and a blanket 10% border tax on all other countries, barring some exemptions. Over the weekend, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggested that there was a potential path to a deal with China on tariffs after speaking with the Chinese counterparts on the sidelines of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank spring meetings. Analysis by the U.S. private equity group Apollo Global Management showed new business orders have fallen sharply since Trump's Liberation Day announcement on the 2nd of April. Yay! It's almost like we've got incompetent people in this administration and stupid things keep happening. Are you ready for this one? You know I'm setting this up to tell you something really stupid happened, right? The U.S. Navy reporting that they just dumped millions of dollars of taxpayer money in the ocean.
We're going to get to some breaking news right now. The U.S. Navy says a sailor is injured after a fighter jet rolled off an aircraft carrier and sunk to the bottom of the Red Sea. Crew lost control of the $70 million FA-18 as it was being towed out of a hangar bay on the USS Harry Truman. Now, there was one person on board the jet who was able to jump out just in time. The carrier is deployed to help protect commercial ships against Houthi attacks from Yemen. But officials are saying this was just human error on board the ship. An investigation is now underway, and we'll keep you posted as we learn more about this situation.
That sounds about right. That would make sense. Well, okay, if you don't think that was incompetence, that was because they were under attack or something like that. But why saying they were under attack would be a lot better than saying, "Oh, we just had an airplane roll off the deck." That makes them look even dumber. $70 million. I guess like $40 million. $70 million. Okay, here's some incompetence. Pete Hegseth had an unsecured internet line in his office.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth made an unannounced trip to a U.S. base at the southern border this morning, leaving behind growing turmoil at the Pentagon.
Now, as you may have
This is
noticed,
over the weekend.
the media likes to call it chaos. We call it overdue.
CBS News has confirmed Hegseth had an unsecured internet connection installed in his office so he could access the messaging app Signal on his computer, a report the Department of Defense has denied. Hegseth is under investigation by the Pentagon for his use of Signal on a personal phone to share sensitive information about military strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. Government security consultant James Lewis said that's the biggest problem.
What was the most worrying thing that you saw?
Using your personal device is asking for trouble. All the other intelligence agencies in the world are trying to get into your phone, and they've probably succeeded. So that's what worried me. Bad idea.
In the last week, Hegseth has fired several senior advisors over leaks to the media, and an official told CBS News he threatened Admiral Christopher Grady, vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs, with a lie detector.
Oh, China's absolutely winning.
Lies. No one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations.
It's not so much that the Signal app was used, but the information that was shared on that Signal app and who he shared that with. For instance, his wife, his brother, and his attorney. And
I love horn music. DJ Dub, welcome in. Not enough horns in music nowadays.
Daggett, CBS News at the Pentagon.
Thank you, Charlie Daggett. We appreciate your reporting here. What about you want some corruption? We did incompetence, let's do corruption. You want to do corruption? Trump-aligned club for the ultra-rich launches in Washington. The launch of executive branch comes as Trump world looks to remake Washington. Oh my God, Vivek is in the picture. Is that Ben Stiller? Or is that like an Indian dude that looks like Ben Stiller? I don't know what's going on here. Omid Malik. That's not Ben Stiller. I apologize. It looks like Vivek, the dude that was the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Indian Ben Stiller, a couch fucker, and a cokehead. I'm saying no to that orgy couch immediately. A big no from me, dog. The new club is coming to Washington, and you probably can't get in. Donald Trump Jr., mega donor Omid Malik, and several other investors are launching an invite-only club that costs more than $500,000 to join, with an exclusive post-White House Correspondents' Dinner gathering, according to an invite obtained by Politico and two people with knowledge of the venture, granted anonymity, granted anonymity to discuss the private organization. The executive branch is the brainchild of Malik and the president's eldest son. They're partners at conservative fund 1789 Capital. It's going to be located in Georgetown. Their goal, the people familiar with the plan say, is to create the highest-end private club that Washington has ever had and to cater to the business and tech moguls who are looking to nurture their relationships with the Trump administration. The referral requirements are prohibitive pricing is meant to ensure the C-suite crowd can mingle with Trump advisors and cabinet members without the prying eyes of the press and wannabe insiders. The price tag won't be a problem for Trump's cabinet, given it's by far the wealthiest in history. The club already has a wait list. Hey, maybe we can get Congress to do something about this brazen corruption, right? Who would we lean on in Congress to be able to take care of this corruption? Perhaps the Oversight Committee? Oversight Committee, right? That's who takes care of things like this, right? Connolly to step down as the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee, paving the way for generational change, though the word is it's not going to be generational change. The word is he has anointed a successor who is also 70 years old. Rep. Jerry Connolly, the guy who, Nancy Pelosi backed over AOC. The top Democrat on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee will step down from his leadership post on the panel and is not running for re-election. The Virginia Democrat, whose constituency includes many federal workers, cited the return of his esophageal cancer, first diagnosed in late 2024, as the reason for his planned departure. With no rancor and a full heart, I move into this final chapter full of pride in what we've accomplished together over 30 years. Connolly said in a statement on Monday, saying he will pull back from his ranking member position soon. Connolly had beaten out Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for the top leadership position on the panel in a contest last fall that in many ways had tested the House Democratic Caucus's appetite for generational change. Several aging committee leaders had stepped aside in the face of challenges from Democrats who promised to bring a more vigorous opposition to the Trump administration. Though Connolly and his allies had stressed that the veteran lawmaker had invaluable investigative experience. Ocasio-Cortez is no longer a member of the Oversight Committee and joined Energy and Commerce this year, so she could have a difficult time mounting a comeback bid, though it's not clear she intends to do so. Others who might step up to the plate include Reps. Ro Khanna of California and Jasmine Crockett of Texas. When reached for comment, Crockett and Khanna didn't close the door on seeking a bid to succeed Connolly. I'm the vice ranker, so when I took the role on, I was and still am willing to step in service to the caucus and the country, but conversations need to be had before any formal announcement can be made, Crockett said in a text message. I admire Representative Connolly for his years of service and commitment to accountability and transparency. He has stepped back, not stepped aside. I'm praying for him and his family. I'm focused on that right now in our committee's work, said Khanna in a statement. According to a congressional aide granted anonymity to share private conversations, Connolly has been in communication with Representative Stephen Lynch of Massachusetts, the second in line in seniority among Democrats behind D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, about covering for him on the dais until a permanent replacement is elected. He has asked Lynch to begin that stint at the Wednesday markup of the panel's portion of the GOP massive tax, border, and energy bill. When late Oversight Chair Elijah Cummings, a Democrat, was unable to act as chair due to health issues, he tapped then Representative Carolyn Maloney to act in his capacity. She ultimately became the committee chair. So that's Connolly putting the finger on the scales for Lynch. He's 70 years old, according to Ken Klippenstein. He was arrested for drunkenly attacking a group of Iranian students protesting the U.S.'s intervention abroad in 1996. In 96, he introduced a gay panic amendment to lower penalties for homophobic hate crimes. Oh, this guy is horrible. So that's who they picked. That's who Connolly picked to step up to possibly take his spot on the Oversight Committee. I'd love to see Jasmine Crockett. If it's not going to be AOC, if she's gone to a different committee, Jasmine Crockett would be amazing. Mox, welcome in, my friend. You always make me rethink pronunciations. You mess them up so bad. Which word was that in reference to? Or just yes, all of them? Because I fucked up several that time. A feminine nomenon. A what? A feminine nomenon. Sorry. We've got polls closing in Canada again, coming up at the top of the hour. I'm going to hit you with this story about Capitol Hill lawmakers coming back, their budget fight. Then we're going to check in with what is going on in the Canadian elections.
Lawmakers are back on Capitol Hill today after a 2-week recess. House Speaker Mike Johnson is meeting with President Trump to discuss a reconciliation package at the White House this afternoon. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Cory Booker returned to Capitol Hill Sunday, one day ahead of the session resuming. The two staged a 12-hour sit-in, which was live streamed in protest of President Trump's agenda and the Republican budget bill. CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us now from Capitol Hill. So, Caitlin, where do things stand first with the reconciliation package, and any inkling how long this could take?
Hey, Lindsay, great to see you. Well, they want to get something to the president's desk by around Memorial Day. So that's really not a lot of time to have to get a lot through this Congress. Remember, several weeks ago, the Congress was able to pass just the framework. And just to get to that point, essentially passing a series of bullet points saying this is what we want to do, that took so much arm twisting and wrangling just to get to that point. So imagine now it comes to the actual writing of policy. That's a huge lift, not to mention the fact that they have to get it through both chambers of Congress. So this week, the various committees tasked with writing this legislation will get to work. We're not sure yet when we'll actually see text, but leadership has been telling us that they've been prepared for a while now to get something done. The biggest question
Liberals starting to run away with it.
Are what they are going to do with
Still early.
social safety net programs, especially Medicaid.
Up 16-4 on the Conservatives.
Proposal, that framework, that outline said they have to cut about $800 billion from specific parts of the federal budget, and that money has to come from somewhere. And the committees tasked with finding those savings oversee Medicaid, Medicare, and other programs. So there is a question of what that might look like, and that really is the focus. Now, today, Lindsay, there's a lot of meetings up here involving lawmakers. As you mentioned, Speaker Johnson's going over to the White House to talk to the president. Then top members of the administration, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, are coming here to Capitol Hill to meet with the Republican leaders all involved in this process. So we'll see what comes out of it. But basically, the White House and Republicans up here all want to be on the same page because this is the president's agenda in legislative form.
You know, Caitlin, Democrats are trying to find a message
Caitlin.
that they can all unify around. We mentioned the sit-in over the weekend. We saw Cory Booker's 24-hour-plus speech on the Senate floor.
Anti-oligarchy. It's a great message.
Convey, and is it working?
It's not.
You know, you mentioned that speech from Booker a few weeks ago, and Democrats that I've talked to up here, as well as strategists and operatives kind of on the campaign side, have really been pointing to that moment as a successful way for Democrats to at least start to message and to start to tell their constituents, their base, that, hey, we're at least trying to do something here. So, you know, we don't think that this will actually lead to policy changes. Republicans are still in charge of everything. But the point that they are trying to make is to message to
Rizzless Obama. Are you talking about Booker or are you talking about Jeffries? It could be either.
to programs like Medicaid. So
they both thought they looked
I
gangsta.
think from Democrats, given that they're in the minority,
It looked like they were posing for an album cover.
to the budget.
It was so poser.
Since they're doing this through that reconciliation process, which means they don't need Democrats to support it. They can make it without them.
Caitlin.
Let's head back over to the CBC. Polls closing in Canada just a few moments ago in
checking my email.
Eastern province.
You'll answer them tomorrow.
Eastern provinces.
We do have some more results from Prince Edward Island. Let's look at Cardigan. Kent McDonald.
Rosario. Wait, what?
There hasn't been an incumbent there in a very long time.
Was he with Rosario Dawson? And Mindy Kaling?
Provincial Health Minister James.
How does Cory Booker keep? Which I mean, Mindy is kind of like ruined her reputation.
Looks like that they are holding Bobby Morrissey.
She seems awful cringe nowadays.
Lead of 76, but certainly a lead over Logan McClellan. One more to look at, which is Malpeck. Heath McDonald, again, a lead of just 28 over Jamie Foxx.
Britter, welcome in.
Being there for a very long time. PEI, this place where the Conservatives invested a ton.
We are covering the Canadian election tonight. I've also got plenty of news that we're going to get to throughout the night.
Yeah, and one of the things about this race is the Conservatives have been ready for this election.
We're going to keep checking back in with the Canadian election.
There until things change pretty dramatically.
Current
New Liberal leader and, of course, Donald Trump. Catherine Cullen.
Current tally at 16 for the Liberals, 7 for the
We have early
Conservatives.
results. This is one of the 3 ridings the Conservatives held going into tonight's vote. Dr. Stephen Ellis with the lead. He was elected in 2021. He's been pretty outspoken on a number of health issues, including the fentanyl file and the way in which the Liberal government dealt with that. So again, early numbers, but not
The fentanyl file? What?
Dr. Stephen Ellis.
Okay.
Can somebody clue me in on what that is?
16 to 7 is what you're seeing at the bottom of your screen there. But we only have 1 elected at this stage, so we're standing by for more results, and that's what Ian has for us right now.
We've been really eager, Rosie, to find out what's going to happen in Miramichi Grand Lake. So let's take a look at the first results from there. Nothing very conclusive at this point, not a lot of votes counted, but one thing I should point out to you as we do get, hopefully soon, more results from Miramichi Grand Lake, both Mike Dawson and Lisa.
It's still early in the night. Polls yet to close.
Depending on which polls you're
throughout
looking
the
at,
central and western part of the country.
rural areas, and so we really have to be cautious about reading too much.
So we're probably going to get
we would read nothing in this really early result, but this is
more concrete
the Conservatives won last
results about
right now.
what the government's going to look like
That is encouraging. As we wait
coming around the 9-10 o'clock hour.
This will probably be the only one tonight because we're very busy. Canada Votes 2025 will continue right after this.
And we will leave the CBC for now. We will come back shortly, check back in with them. I'm going to take you to Indiana, where a Republican apparently really stoked on the 3/5 compromise, thinks the 3/5 compromise is amazing. Ponder Monkey, welcome in. Republican posts video defending law that declared slaves 3/5 of a person. Indiana Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith appeared in a Twitter video praising the so-called 3/5 compromise established at the Constitutional Convention. The law determined that for the purposes of representation in Congress and the Electoral College, slaves would be counted as 3/5 of a person. Beckwith posted the video in response to a debate over a Senate bill which was compared to the 3/5 law by Democrats. Sitting on the edge of his desk, the lieutenant governor said that the constitutional compromise was a great move. Let's watch this jackass say this shit.
Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith, want to give you an update on a bill, Senate Bill 289, which is called Unlawful Discrimination Bill. Senator Byrne is carrying that bill. It was in the Senate just a few minutes ago. Well, if you were watching or listening to the Senate...
Now, I'm pretty sure he's talking about the state Senate in Indiana, not the federal Senate.
You were trying to fall asleep, and we're trying to get some good background noise on. You might have been listening. The Senate on the Democrat side, they got up and they started talking about how this bill embodies something to the effect of the 3/5 compromise. They were bringing that up. They were saying this is a bad bill because it actually encourages discrimination, just like the 3/5 compromise, going all the way back to the foundations of our nation. I would like to share with you the 3/5 compromise is not a pro-discrimination compromise. It was not a pro-discrimination or a slave
Yeah, it was.
compromise that the founders made. It was actually just the opposite. It was a compromise that the North made with the South. At the time, there were basically 13 independent nations. They had not really created a constitution. They were sort of a European Union-esque nation, and they were saying to the pro-slave states, hey, if you want to count your slaves to have representation, more representation in Congress, we're not going to let you do that, because they knew that that would codify things like slavery into our nation. And the North stood up to the South. And they said, we're going to, if you're going to count your property, because the South says, hey, this is our property, but we want to count them in the congressional representation. We want to count them in the census. At the time, there was 30,000 people would equal one member of Congress. And so they said, we're going to count our slaves. We're going to get more members of Congress in the South.
Yeah, he's kind of got his timeline wrong there.
They came back to the South and they said, fine, if you want to count your property, your slaves, as whole people, we're going to count our property. We're going to count our tables. We're going to count our chairs. We're going to count all the stuff that we have in our house. And the South said, well, you can't do that. And they said, well, you're doing it with your property. We're doing it with our property. So what they did is they came up with a 3/5 compromise. They said, you will only get 3/5 of a vote when it comes to your slave. And what that did, it actually limited the number of pro-slave representatives in Congress by 40%. This was a great move by the North.
Limited? No, it allowed more pro. God damn, motherfucker.
To make sure that slavery would be eradicated in our nation. They knew what they were doing. But now, here you
No, they didn't.
Senate Democrats in today's American Republic who do not understand that. They think the 3/5 compromise was something that was a scourge on black people. That's
Yes, it was.
We get to this place. We got to this place because of DEI in education. We got to this place because you have professors at woke schools that will not teach the history of what actually happened back in the foundations of our nation. Many men and
woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
The idiot with the tortured history lesson just said. Lenny, good evening, my friend.
leaders in our nation's history knew how wicked slavery was. They knew that God had created even black people, white people, red people, all people in his image, and they were fighting.
Libertad is correct, doing some Steiner-esque math up in here.
Take my 75% chance of winning and then add 66 and 2/3%. I got 141 and 2/3 chance of winning.
Yeah, why would a white guy lie about slavery and racism?
For equality for all. But they're not taught that today. And that's why you had the Senate Democrats who were getting up talking about the 3/5 compromise like it was some sort of terrible thing in our past. It was not. It actually was the exact opposite that helped to root out slavery and lead us into a more perfect union that we now see, where black, white, red, brown, all people can have equal representation under the law. That's what the 3/5 compromise was all about. So don't buy into the DEI radical revisionist history that is happening in today's culture. Know your history. Go back and study the documents. Read them for yourself like I have. Go look them up, and you will find that the 3/5 compromise and many other things like that were designed to make sure that justice was equal for all people, and equality really meant equality.
No, not at all. It ensured that slavery continued. They shouldn't have compromised. It was a compromise to ensure that slavery could continue. It wasn't some grand scheme to make sure that they could end slavery later. My God.
For all. So that's what's going on in the Senate today. Glad to keep you updated. Thanks for everyone tuning in and for all you're doing to keep our nation and our state the greatest it can possibly be.
But I mean, this is the party that's getting out here also telling us that we need to move to the next phase. What in the fuck does he mean by next phase? That sounds awful final solution-ish. The next phase is what they're wanting.
Well, we've had an interesting 2 weeks out of this building, and sadly my home state of Wisconsin made the news again. In an effort to remove not just any person here illegally, but somebody who had broken the law, an abuser, somebody who under normal circumstances would not be viewed favorably.
Wow.
In Wisconsin, stop the hearing. Let's not worry about putting this guy in jail. Let's let him sneak out the back door so he is not removed from this country. This was after about a month ago, our governor, Tony Evers, nice guy, he came out with a directive implying that state employees ought not to be that gung-ho when it came from removing state employees from this country if they were here illegally. So we have 2 examples in Wisconsin alone in which elected officials aren't on the page of addressing the immigration laws. So now I think it's important that we all be articulate enough to explain to people back home why these immigration laws are necessary and be
dude, tell me why they're necessary.
Being mean to immigrants.
But you are.
I not hear enough people talk about the fact that in the prior 3 years, and it goes up and down by year, but if you take a rolling average, in the last 3 years, we have over 800,000 people every year sworn in as new citizens legally in this country.
Okay.
How often do you hear about that? 850,000 people who did it right.
Okay.
It's not impossible.
No, it's not.
Under here. And by the way, that is historically a very high number. If you go back to the 50s and 60s, frequently that number was only a little over 100,000. So the number of people keep being sworn as new citizens are already 8 times what they were in the 60s.
In the 60s and 50s.
Nobody should apologize or saying we're being mean or not letting people in here. What we are doing is, if we let these people who came here legally in, is we're kicking in the face anybody who did it right. We know we have a housing crisis in this country, and when you begin to flood this country with another 10 million people, as happened during the Biden administration.
Okay, when you say flood the country with 10 million people, most of those are asylum claims, which is a legal process, and you are deeming them illegal. That you just flat out lying.
Administration, given the
what a slob, yeah.
We know it's driving up rents, making it more difficult.
Immigrants are not driving up my rent.
Average American to attain the American dream. I should also point out,
fuck you,
that we have significant numbers of visas which allow people to come here as well. We have about 900,000 at any time.
That Trump is just revoking for no reason because, they have their own politics.
Well over 5 million people here on visas for temporary visitors for business and pleasure. As far as college students are concerned, we allow another over 400,000 people in this country on student visas. It is incredibly easy to get in this country, or not all.
No, it's not.
Millions of people come into this country legally and are able to do so. We do not have to have sympathy for people who came here illegally. And I think it's important that we educate the American public on that, because
why can't I have sympathy for everybody?
The next phase, where we not only get rid of the criminal element that's came in here, but we have to begin to get rid of the 10,000 people or 10 million people who may have not broken a horrible law, but broke the law just by coming here. It is a kick in the teeth to anybody who wants to come here legally to allow Joe Biden's 10 million people who he let in the last 4 years stay here.
Come on, man.
One more thing I want to address.
You're a piece of shit.
As we begin to work on Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill, I want to remind people in this chamber that right now we've got a system of benefits whereby if you are a single parent and you marry the father of your children or mother of your children, you can lose easily over $25,000 a year. In other words, the U.S. government spends $25,000 a year bribing single parents not to get married. I thought in this country we were supposed to treat people equally, but we don't treat people equally. We have an overwhelming bias in favor of
capital
parents.
Gentleman's time
from
has
being
expired.
Married.
Of capital. We have an overwhelming bias
Chamber,
in
remember
favor of
that,
capital.
as we put together.
I don't know. What he's keeping people not married?
Parents.
Gentleman's time
from
has
being
expired.
Married.
I was getting ready to say the tax code highly favors parents and marriage. What the fuck is he talking about?
People of this chamber remember that as we put together Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. We should not pass that bill unless we do something first about the massive marriage
gentleman's
hatred
time has
that we
expired.
have.
Marriage hatred. Marriage hatred is what he said. That was Representative Glenn Grothman from Wisconsin. Representative Glenn Grothman. What a piece of shit he is. And he was talking about the arrest of a judge in Wisconsin, advocating for it when it was a gross abuse of power. Let's go to Democracy Now! For the real story of what happened to that judge last week.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. We look now at how the Trump administration is escalating its attacks on judges. On Friday, FBI agents arrested a county judge in Milwaukee, Judge Hannah Dugan, and charged her with obstructing justice and concealing an individual from arrest. The FBI accuses her of helping an undocumented immigrant leave her courtroom in her Wisconsin courthouse April 18th to avoid arrest by agents waiting in the hallway. That day, a Mexican immigrant named Eduardo Flores Ruiz was before her in a hearing on battery charges he faced stemming from an argument over loud music with his roommate, the roommate's girlfriend, and her cousin. Flores Ruiz had been working in the U.S. for about 12 years as a cook in Milwaukee after he was first deported in 2013. The day before the hearing, an immigration judge had issued a warrant for his arrest. After he left Judge Dugan's courtroom, agents reportedly saw Flores Ruiz walking down the hallway to the elevator and leave the courthouse. They arrested him minutes later outside. Judge Dugan's arrest just this past Friday came a week after all this unfolded, has drawn massive backlash across the country. Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin said, quote, "This action fits into the deeply concerning pattern of this president's lawless behavior and undermining courts and Congress's checks on his power," unquote. FBI Director Kash Patel is facing accusations he broke DOJ policy by posting a photo online of Judge Dugan
Because it's for propaganda purposes.
on Saturday. Protesters rallied outside the FBI building in St. Francis, Wisconsin, to protest the Trump administration's crackdown on immigrants and the arrest of Judge Dugan.
And to do what she did and respect everything she tried to do. People think we are not near fascism, but we are. They think it can't happen here, but it can and is happening here right now. And if we don't stop it before it gets too far along,
I think it's kind of too far along.
Germany was in the 30s and 40s.
Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan was released Friday after her arrest by the FBI. On Sunday, reporters asked President Trump about the case.
What's next for cleaning up the courts after Judge Dugan's arrest?
Cleaning up the courts.
It's terrible that could happen with a judge. Is so ashamed. And we have to, look, we have to bring our...
I mean, notice the friendly media. A whitewashed version of the news. Hey, what's going on with the cleaning up of the courts?
Country back from all these criminals that Biden allowed to come in. These are world-class criminals and people that are insane, people from jails, murderers, drug addicts, drug dealers. And, you know, we have a country. We have to be proud of our country. We can't...
I got a world-class criminal on my screen.
Stay. And we're just not going to allow it. So hopefully the Supreme Court will come to the rescue of our country.
For more, we're joined in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, by Ann Jacobs, a Milwaukee-based attorney who personally knows Judge Hannah Dugan, has appeared before her in court. Jacobs is also chair of the Wisconsin Elections Commission. Ann Jacobs, welcome to Democracy Now! What happened here?
It's a fascinating story, isn't it? And thank you for highlighting the fact that
fascistic story.
The director of the FBI made a photograph of Judge Dugan being taken away in handcuffs, which is just appalling and such an abuse of power. What happened here was according to the complaint, immigration authorities, 6 people, 2 FBI, 2 ICE, a DE, and a couple of DEAs. I may have the numbers exactly wrong, but 6 people go to pick up this gentleman in court. Like courthouses across the country, we have metal detectors, so no guns allowed. And they come into the courthouse and they go to Judge Dugan's courtroom and they say, we're here to arrest this guy. And she says, we got a protocol. You have to go talk to the chief judge, whose courtroom is some distance away. And they say, fine. And she goes back in. The interesting part of all this is apparently 4 of the 6 go off to the chief judge's office, leaving the 2 DEA agents behind in the hallway. There's some lengthy discussion in the complaint about what happens in the courtroom.
Why DEA?
But I think it's undisputed, which is that she allows the public defender and the gentleman at issue to go out a side door. And from that side door, they exit onto the public hallway. In the public hallway are the 2 DEA agents sitting there, ostensibly waiting for him. The attorney and the gentleman come out into the hallway and they look around. This is in the complaint. They look around. Nothing happens to them. So they walk to the elevators and they go downstairs to leave the courthouse. The DEA agents, we don't know why, don't arrest him. One of them gets into the elevator with them.
Wait.
They go downstairs and then eventually he is arrested. That's the sum total of what really the accusations are against Judge Dugan. There's a lot of very breathless. She was stern. She walked quickly. She appeared angry. There's a lot of those sort of salacious tidbits. But in the end, the sum total of what she did is direct him to a side door and send him out to the public hallway.
To a public hallway where the agents could have gotten him there. But she did express anger, right, to the agents before he appeared in court, that they were concerned that they would arrest him in her courtroom. Is that right?
That's certainly what the complaint says. And I want you to think about a couple of things. First of all, if you've ever met a judge, they're not always very happy when their courtroom is full.
No, they are not.
Secondly, and the assumption is that the only reason she's upset is that ICE is there to arrest him in her courtroom. In other words, that there's something about him that she is upset about. In her courtroom, she's in misdemeanor court. In her courtroom are witnesses, victims, and the like, for whom an ICE agent going around arresting people can really impede the justice for those folks. So it's not only the fact that somebody who's charged with a crime is getting arrested, and I'm simply reading into the complaint, it is equally logical to be upset about the fact that they're coming into a courtroom where you need to have everyone in the community, documented or not, be able to feel safe.
I wanted to go to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States.
No one is above the law in this country. And if you are...
Apparently Trump is.
If you are obstructing justice, when you have victims sitting in a courtroom of domestic violence and you're escorting a criminal defendant out a back door, it will not be tolerated, and it is a crime in the United States of America.
So that was U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi speaking on Fox News. Ann Jacobs, your response.
As lawyers, we have really strong ethical rules on what we're allowed to say and what we're not allowed to say, in part to prevent impacting a court case and especially for government attorneys who are required to be honest and accurate and everything else. And I think those sort of comments that she's making are unfortunate and designed to sort of taint the view of what happened here. It also makes it sound like this was going to be a trial and what have you. This was a pretrial hearing in misdemeanor court with an out of custody defendant. This is not some day of justice, as it were. It's a pretty ordinary day in a pretty ordinary court where you're going to have lots and lots of misdemeanors, persons charged with misdemeanors in the courtroom. And adjourning the case is not a denial of justice. It's a pretty ordinary thing. And she sent him out to a public corridor where law enforcement was waiting, and law enforcement looked at him and watched him walk to the elevators. It's just a bizarre story.
What message do you think the Trump administration is trying to send to judges as it loses one case after another, scores of cases around the country, whether we're talking about Trump-appointed judges, conservative judges, or not?
The message is crystal clear. If you cross the Trump administration, we will arrest you. I mean, I think that's literally what they are trying to do. So I think the goal is to chill judges from ruling against the Trump administration, requiring that they follow applicable laws and procedures when it comes to detentions, arrests, to require them to have valid warrants and the like. So certainly that's the intention of this, with the hopes that they can cudgel the judiciary into simply becoming meekly obedient to the executive branch.
Ann Jacobs, we want to thank you so much for being with us, an attorney based in Milwaukee.
Not the only judge they've arrested. This judge is now resigned, though, accused of harboring a fugitive. Apparently his daughter possibly was seeing this guy who was in the country illegally. Now the judge is resigned. This happened in New Mexico.
We continue to follow today's top story out of New Mexico. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement have arrested a former judge and his wife. This after federal law enforcement learned that their tenant, an alleged Tren de Aragua gang member, was arrested at his home. Thank you for choosing KTSM 9 News at 10. I'm Andy Morgan. Monica has the night off. Now we're also learning other Venezuelan nationals were arrested and are in HSI custody. An ICE spokeswoman said the former judge, Joel Cano, and his wife, Nancy Cano, was taken into custody earlier today as part of an ongoing HSI-led criminal investigation. This was at a home on North Raymond Street in Las Cruces. As KTSM reported, former Doña Ana County Magistrate Judge Joel Cano rented out his, quote, casita, or small home behind their house, to Christian Ortega Lopez. They met when his wife hired Ortega Lopez to install glass. The district attorney's office says Ortega Lopez was seen with multiple firearms in pictures that were posted on social media. You're seeing those now. The feds seized those firearms and arrested Ortega Lopez in February. Ortiz Loya allegedly admitted to entering the country illegally in 2023.
So nothing.
Charge of illegal alien in possession.
Nothing concrete on him.
Firearm. It's not known if the Canos knew of Ortega Lopez's alleged gang affiliation. Now this is a look at
who was alleging he was
made the arrest.
A member of a gang.
See agent vehicles parked all around the neighborhood. Both the former judge and his wife being charged with tampering with evidence and are expected in court tomorrow.
Initially, we came back here to arrest his wife, and as we started obviously conducting our interviews and started looking at evidence, we subsequently arrested Mr. Cano as well.
The couple is being interviewed and could face additional charges depending on that outcome. Officials have not provided further details on the Venezuelan nationals who were also arrested. We are following this story closely and will bring you the latest as soon as we learn more.
Trying to get an update on exactly what happened in court today. Let me see if this is the latest on the case. More details emerge about Judge Kano's arrest. The U.S. Department said late Friday that former... Okay, so this isn't an update. Said late Friday that former Dauphin County Magistrate Judge Joe Cano smashed a cell phone, and his wife, Nancy, plotted to delete a social media account to prevent federal authorities from finding further evidence against a Venezuelan man accused of possessing a firearm living on their property. Video calls from the Dauphin County Detention Center allegedly showed Nancy Cano in possession of what federal authorities believe to be Ortega Lopez's fourth unrecovered cell phone. On March 7th, Nancy Cano made a call through a private messaging platform offering end-to-end encryption for greater security to a third-party person named only as Michelle. This is according to the DOJ. Nancy Cano then used her own cell phone to facilitate a video call conversation through another enhanced security platform between Michelle and Ortega Lopez, according to the federal authorities. And then on 4/20, a call between Nancy Cano and Ortega Lopez. Nancy Cano allegedly discussed with him deleting his Facebook account. The DOJ states in a news release that Ortega Lopez's Facebook account is a platform he previously used to share incriminating content, including images of the federal government that the federal government says connects him to being affiliated with the Trendy Aguagua gang, and images of him holding firearms. I don't believe it. They're going to arrest him and construct a case later. You're exactly right, DJ Dub. I don't believe it. They don't have anything on him. Meanwhile, the White House doing this disgusting stunt by posting signs out on the White House lawn. You saw my meme from earlier. That was what this was in. This is what that was in reference to. This is the meme. White House displays Republicans who made news for child sex crimes in 2025. Instead, it was actually immigrants they've deported.
The Trump administration is approaching its first 100-day mark with a full court press on the issue of illegal immigration, and they really don't want you to miss it. So they subtly and tastefully decked the White House North Lawn with dozens of yard signs featuring photos of people that the Trump administration claims are in the country illegally, each poster saying, arrest.
Man, like arrested for child molestation or child abduction. Fuck, that's insane. Not convicted. They were just arrested for it.
Arrested and listing the alleged offensive with which they have been charged. CNN's working to confirm the identities and if there are actual allegations against these people. Until then, we are blurring their identities. That display was put up after the Trump administration announced nearly 800 of undocumented immigrants in a massive crackdown in Florida over the weekend, even though immigration has historically been one of President Trump's more popular issues, given he outperformed his first term high by 7 points earlier this year. Something appears to be changing. A brand new CNN poll released yesterday shows declining approval ratings for President Trump's handling of this issue of immigration. Overall, 45% approved now. That's down 6 points from March. 53% are expressing confidence in the president's ability to deal with immigration. That's still a majority, but it is down from 60% in December. 47% of the American people say they have no confidence in the president's handling of this issue.
Obviously, the president has signed over 200 executive orders and immigrations in as nearly 100 days in office, and a lot of them have
not high enough for this shit.
Some in ways.
This is fascist propaganda 101.
Trump signed on his first several days in office. Today, they a lot of times also have to do just with messaging, including the one that he's expected to sign here shortly, Jake, inside the.
I have no doubt that many of the people on those signs
open to reporters
are not guilty of anything.
To relate to publishing a list of all the sanctuary cities in the the United States, for example, as the White House is really trying to keep immigration at the forefront of their agenda and also highlighting what they have done on immigration, because that was one of his key campaign promises, Jake. And yes, you've seen the border crossings go down significantly. When you look at the numbers from January and then February, March, and since the president has been in the Oval Office, you've seen just how dramatically those numbers have dropped. And so the White House is trying to keep the focus on that. That's why the signs are behind me here at the White House focusing on that, because they do know typically it's one of his strongest areas that he polls in with voters. And they saw him coming into the White House arguing it was a mandate to secure the border. They've been facing way more scrutiny lately, Jake, though, of course, over some of the cases when it comes to who they are deporting and whether or not those people are being afforded due process as a part of those deportations from the United States, and also whether or not they're abiding by court rulings. They were just pressed this morning about a little girl who is a U.S. citizen who was deported along with her mother, who is undocumented. And you saw Tom Homan, the president's borders, are arguing that was a parental issue. He kept pointing to the mother. That is something he's done previously when we've asked, well, what happens when a child who's in a mixed status household, one of their parents is deported? And they have often pointed back to just parenting in that case, Jake. And so certainly it is something that the White House is trying to highlight. But as you noted, those CNN poll numbers, the president's handling of immigration is down 6 points since March, as they have continued to face a lot of court scrutiny over this matter.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks so much.
Kristen.
I've got cat sneezing multiple times over here. You okay, buddy? You got some allergies? She mentioned a U.S. citizen. It's not one. It's 3 now. There are 3, at least, that we know of. 3 U.S. citizens ages 2, 4, and 7 swiftly deported from Louisiana. The cases have renewed concerns that the Trump administration's expedited deportations are violating the rights of both citizens and non-citizens. 3 U.S. citizen children from 2 different families were deported with their mothers by Immigration and Customs Enforcement during the early hours of Friday morning. One of them is a 4-year-old with stage 4 cancer. Deported without medication or the ability to contact their doctors. According to their lawyers, both families were taken into custody while attending a routine check-in with the New Orleans this week in New Orleans as part of the Intensive Supervision Appearance Program, which allows individuals to remain in their communities while undergoing immigration proceedings. Lawyers say the families were taken to Alexandria, Louisiana, a 3-hour drive from New Orleans, where they were prevented from communicating with their family members and legal representatives, and then put on a flight to Honduras. The cases have renewed concerns that the Trump administration expedited deportations are violating the due process rights of both citizens and non-citizens. I don't know how much more of a blatant or clear constitutional violation there can be than deporting U.S. citizens without due process, Alana Odoms, the executive director of the ACLU Louisiana, said, especially with some of those citizens being the most vulnerable of all vulnerable. Children, not just any children, children with medical conditions that are dire. U.S. government has never released data on how many U.S. citizens have been wrongfully detained or deported by ICE, but independent investigations have revealed that ICE has arrested, detained, deported, or issued detainers requests to local jails to hold a person in custody for thousands of citizens since the agency's creation in 2003. Lawyers representing the father of the 2-year-old U.S. citizen who was deported, identified as VML in court documents, filed an emergency petition in the Western District of Louisiana on Thursday seeking her release. The child was put on a plane to Honduras the next morning before the court opened. Hours after the deportation, U.S. District Court Judge Terry A. Daughtry, a Trump appointee, issued an order expressing his concern that the girl had been deported against her father's wishes, while stressing it is illegal and unconstitutional to deport U.S. citizens. The government contends that this is all okay because the mother wishes that the child be deported with her, wrote Daughtry, who has been lauded for his conservative rulings in the past, but the court doesn't know that. Daugherty set a May 16th court hearing to investigate his strong suspicion that the government just deported a U.S. citizen with no meaningful process. The order did not call for the girl's return or recommend any recourse for the family. According to the court filings, the girl had accompanied her mother and 11-year-old sister to the immigration appointment in New Orleans on Tuesday morning. About an hour later, her father, who had driven the family into New Orleans for the meeting, received a call informing him that the family had been taken into custody. That night, the girl's father was allowed to speak with her mother for only a minute before an ICE agent ended the call, lawyers contend. Lawyers say the man did not get the chance to speak to his partner or child again until after they were released in Honduras. Both of these mothers were held without the ability to speak with their co-parents and the guardians of their children while making this incredibly personal and difficult assessment about what was best for their children, said Gracie Willis, the lawyer for VML's father. Justice Department lawyers argued that the man claiming to be VML's father had failed to prove his identity to the government despite requests that he present himself to ICE, adding that he also demonstrated considerable hesitation regarding the inquiries into his immigration status. The man's lawyer included VML's birth certificate in their filings, which shows she was born in Baton Rouge, and lists the names of both her mother and father. The government is not disputing the immigration status of any of the three children. Instead, officials contend that the undocumented mothers opted to take their citizen children with them back to Honduras. In their court filing, Justice Department lawyers attached a note they say was written by VML's mother, saying that she was taking the child with her to Honduras. It is common that parents want to be removed with their children, according to Tricia McLaughlin, a spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security. Willis says ICE's refusal to allow the women to talk to their lawyers meant that there was no way to verify whether that was true in these cases. We have absolutely no idea whether they ever actually did give consent for their children to come with them, or if they did under what kind of duress and what other options were presented to them. Tom Homan, the so-called border czar, was at the White House press briefing today, insists they did nothing wrong. They weren't deported. Their mothers took them with them.
Are you concerned that due process, at least for the U.S. citizen children, is being flouted, and that the speed at which the enforcement is being done could lead to errors?
I'd said from day one that if you enter this country legally, it's a crime. If you choose to have a U.S. citizen child, knowing you're in this country legally, you put yourself in that position. You put your family in that position. What we did is remove children with their mothers who requested the children depart with them. This was a parental decision. Parenting 101. The mothers made that choice. And I tell you what, if we didn't do it, the story today would be Trump administration separating families again. No, we're keeping families together. So when a parent
My God.
I want my 2-year-old baby to go with me, we made that happen. They weren't deported. We don't deport U.S. citizens. The parents made that decision, not the United States government. This administration is doing the right thing. Having a U.S. citizen child does not make you immune from...
Was it the last border czar, Kamala?
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Or she was just in charge of the border. They didn't actually have a fucking title for it, I don't think.
From our laws. If that's the message we send the entire world, enter the country legally. It's a crime. Don't worry about it. We got a secure border by enforcing our laws. We're not making this up. We're enforcing laws under statute enacted by Congress, and it's the right thing to do.
Can you give an update on...
Fucking ghoul, you fascist piece of shit. Four-year-old migrant girl and other kids go to court in NYC with no lawyer. The cruelty is apparent. This is from The Gothamist. This is public broadcasting. funded. In shelters across New York, migrant children sit in front of computers, TV screens, appearing virtually in real court proceedings. They swivel in chairs, walk in circles, and play with their hair while immigration judges address them on the screens in front of them. The reason we're here is because the government of the United States wants you to leave the United States, Judge Ubald Ubad ul Haq, presiding from a courtroom on Varick Street, told a group of about a dozen children on a recent morning on WebEx. It's my job to figure out if you have to leave, Uhak continued. It's also my job to figure out if you should stay. The parties included a 7-year-old boy wearing a shirt blazoned with a pizza cartoon who spun a toy windmill while the judge spoke. There was an 8-year-old girl and a 4-year-old sister in a tie-dye shirt who squeezed a pink plushie and stuffed it into her sleeve. None of the children were accompanied by parents or attorneys. Only shelter workers who helped them log on to the hearing. Immigrant advocates and lawyers say an increasing number of migrant children are making immigrant court appearances without the assistance of attorneys, which they say will lead to more children getting deported. The Trump administration on March 21st terminated part of a $200 million contract that funds attorneys and other legal services for unaccompanied children. Those are children who arrive without parents or legal guardians and typically instead come with aunts, uncles, or older siblings, according to immigration attorneys. While the contract termination is being challenged in court, immigration advocates say the impact is already being felt as lawyer groups pull back on services, leaving some children on their own. How is a child supposed to navigate this, said Beth Krause, a supervising attorney of the Immigrant Youth Project, the Legal Aid Society. She noted many adults find themselves confused and disadvantaged in immigration court proceedings. The now terminated contract paid for attorneys to represent 26,000 children across the country and friend of the court programs for children, which provide attorneys in court to help pro se respondents navigate the court proceedings. The figures were provided by the Acacia Center for Justice, the nonprofit that manages the contract, and doles out money to other providers across the country. The federal contract funnels $18 million to 9 legal providers across New York State to represent some 1,800 children. Kraft said that before the contract was terminated, she saw 30 to 40% of children in a given docket without lawyers. Now she said the number has increased to 50 to 60%. Without representation, the children are more likely to be ordered deported, according to Mina Saw, the co-managing director of the Legal Services Center at The Door, a New York City-based nonprofit. Nearly all of the people, 96%, appearing in the New York State immigration courts without legal counsel are eventually ordered deported, according to data from the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse. Meanwhile, fewer than a quarter, 23% of those with representation are deported. Immigration lawyers leave no doubt about prospects for children appearing without counsel. That child will be ordered deported from this country. That could all happen without that child ever speaking with an attorney and given the opportunity to obtain representation. The cruelty is really apparent to all of us out here in the field. The wife of the wrongly deported Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, has been forced into a safe house after the government posts their address online. The wife of a wrongly deported Salvadorian father living in Maryland was moved to a safe house after Donald Trump's administration posted a court document that included her address on social media. Motherfucker. The wife, hold on. In an interview with the Washington Post, Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer Vasquez, Thur said she began fearing for her safety and the safety of her 3 children after the Department of Homeland Security shared a protective order from, and I mean, that's always sounded fascist. Department of Homeland Security just fucking sounds fascist as shit. Shared a protective order from 2021 that prominently featured her address to the department's 2.4 million followers on X. I don't feel safe when the government posts my address, the house where my family lives, for everyone to see, especially when this case has gone viral and people have all sorts of opinions. So this is definitely a bit terrifying. I'm scared for my kids. Sounds like some Nazi fucking shit to me, doesn't it, you? But apparently, if you call Nazi shit, people like Bill Maher get their panties in a wad about it.
You were in the news this week for invoking Nazis.
Well, I didn't do what J.D. Vance did and call Trump America's Hitler when he did that a few years ago. I think
what he actually said was, I think about Trump a lot, and he could be an asshole just like Nixon, or he could be America's Hitler.
Oh, that's
and
accurate,
I remember thinking, oh, so the good option is that he's just an asshole like Nixon?
Well, I think there's a big difference in comparing someone to Hitler on the one hand, which I don't do. I think that's a big mistake. And I said that in the speech that you're referring to. That's a unique form of evil that should not ever be compared to anything. We are not living up to our responsibility to our Constitution.
A lot of comparisons.
Remain alert to warning signs that we know from history, not only from the Third Reich, but from a whole series of strongman dictators. When they start trying to tell people what to think, when they start trying to expand their power so that they push the Congress around, push the judiciary around, and try to consolidate dictatorship, the first steps on that road are ones that we should see as warning signs.
Yeah, Al Gore is right on that one. But hey, you know, Bill Maher gets his panties in a wad about a lot of things, like Larry David calling him out. Larry David also writing a op-ed discussing Bill Maher's going to the White House to meet Trump, comparing it to meeting Hitler. Bill Maher took exception to that. Quesadilla, good evening.
Well, let's talk Larry David, because you're friends, aren't you? Were you friends? Are you friends?
Aileen, good evening.
I mean, this wasn't, my favorite moment of our friendship, but, look, I don't want to get in too much into that, but I think the minute you play the Hitler card,
that's what I think.
You've lost the argument.
Yes.
And also, I must say, come on, man, Hitler, Nazis, nobody has been harder about and more prescient, I must say, about Donald Trump than me. I don't need to be like
bullshit.
Donald Trump is. Just the fact that I met him in person didn't change that. And the fact that I reported honestly is not a sin either. But
ouch, Flash, ouch.
The Hitler thing. First of all, I just think it's kind of insulting to 6 million dead Jews, who, like, that should
I'm working on it. I put up lights. You just can't see them.
And
you're too out of the picture.
People can say, well, we're just comparing it in this way. Well, it's an argument you kind of lost just to start it. It's just, look, maybe it's not completely logically fair, but Hitler has really kind of got to stay in his own place. He is the goat of evil, and we're just going to have to.
I don't even know that he's the goat of evil.
So, did I think that was appropriate? No, but people have the right to.
Did you know he was going to do it?
Of course not. And people.
So how did you find out?
Somebody, my publicist said, this is going on today, and you should know it. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean,
have you had any contact with him since?
No, and that's okay. Look,
bring Larry David on.
Reason to go to the White House. I said it right at the beginning of the speech I made about it. Was, talking to Kid Rock right here, and we were just like, there's got to be a better way than just hurling insults from 3,000 miles away. I mean, maybe, you know, nothing will come of this, but...
You're a comedian.
Nothing will come
Your
from
job is literally to hurl insults.
to ignore the person who has all the power. Democrats have no power. So to think that your method of running out of the room screaming, I'm not talking to you, maybe my thing has a 1% chance of succeeding. Yours definitely has 0.
Succeeding at what?
And the final thing I'd say about
He wants to whitewash his image through you. He wants to funnel his fascist propaganda through you. You humanized him. You did exactly what he wanted to. He played you like a fiddle, Bill. God damn, you're dumb.
David things. I read it. I was just like you. The moment I saw Hitler, Nazi. Okay, I get it. It's that very tired old trope. In fact, on your show once with Jim Jeffries, he told me to fuck off on your show when I said Trump is not Hitler. He hasn't been responsible for the death of 12 million people, including 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. And ever since, I just thought every time I see it, this is a ridiculous.
But if you look at the parallels before Hitler killed those 6 million Jews, there's a lot of things to compare.
The thing about the point people made on social media about Larry David was
Dougie, good evening.
Conspicuous by his silence since October the 7th, for example. Not sort of.
Oh my God!
You've been conspicuous by the support you've given Jewish people on your show
and the state of Israel.
Yeah,
and also tearing a new asshole to the what do they call them? I used to call them that useful idiots who take up the cause of some of the most illiberal people in the world, and I'm talking about Hamas, you know, where they are now.
Nobody takes up the cause of Hamas. That Israeli propaganda to fucking equate Palestinian people with Hamas so you can justify the genocide against them, you fucking... Oh, God, I hate you, Bill Maher.
From the people in Gaza against Hamas, because, of course, when the useful idiots talk about oppressors, who's really the oppressor of the people of Hamas? It's Hamas. That's their own people purposely in harm's way.
Even Hamas, the government that they elected, that the people elected like 20 years ago, most of the people alive in Gaza right now did not vote for them. Even they were financed and propped up by Israel in order to make the Palestinian people look bad and to justify the actions that they are taking in Gaza. You fucking idiot. I hate you so much, Bill Maher. It is the top of the hour. Let's head back over to the CBC. It is election night in Canada.
A remarkable race in a remarkable time is brought to a close. Canadians will choose their next government as the country's economic future comes under threat.
My message to President Trump is knock it off.
I think this is the biggest crisis of our lifetime.
Donald Trump's tariffs, a major campaign.
Mars Goon Cave.
As voters search for solutions to the housing crisis and cost of living.
I got the election results over here.
Liberal term.
I think it's 11 clinically, but we could have such a blowout on the east, or in the east,
Record number of people
that they call it
It's an important election.
by 10 o'clock.
A bit of a turning point.
We should see
ballots today.
a lot of results coming in over the next hour or two.
This is Canada Votes 2025. And
Light one up, tip one back for our Canadian friends.
there are a lot more to come. In 30 minutes' time, we will get results from 266 more ridings, a huge amount of data and a huge amount of votes from Quebec all the way over to Alberta and two territories. That round of votes will come fast and furious, and things will start to look a lot clearer in terms of the direction of this country going forward. You can see there, though, at the bottom of your screen, that is where we are at now, with Atlantic Canada results coming in. 22 leading and elected for the Liberals, Conservatives at 10, and the Bloc Québécois at 1, and that's because...
That's why I've got the
has closed.
I've got the big, and now I'm blocking the party logo over on this
We do want to
screen.
show you one person who was re-elected handily tonight, and that is Dominic LeBlanc, re-elected in the riding of Beausejour. As I said, handily.
Let me do this
Of
then.
course, a cabinet minister under Mark Carney right now, and there he is tonight. Dominic LeBlanc, thanks for joining us. Congratulations on your re-election.
Hi, Rosemary. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you. First of all, I want to ask you about where the Liberal Party is at coming out of Atlantic Canada here. Leading or elected, we've got you at 22, the Conservatives at 10. Those weren't quite the numbers that we understood that the Liberals wanted to see at this stage of the evening.
I think that's fair, but there are a lot of votes still to be counted. I've been looking at some of the results in some of the New Brunswick or Nova Scotia ridings, and there are still a lot of polls to be counted. And my experience tells me often the polls that are slow to come in are the ones where there was a very heavy turnout in some advanced polls or other big turnouts on election day today. Look, sure, I think that we should still be very confident in Mr. Carney's campaign, and I'm confident that there's going to be a Liberal government. It can be a majority government, but we'll see as we get into the heavy numbers in Ontario, Quebec, and provinces like British Columbia, I think, will also be very instructive.
Well, we've been talking a little bit about how the race has
How's that?
So far, and it does seem as though the one thing the polls were right about is this is a two-party race.
Well, that didn't work out well.
NDP rather coming out
Why
of
did it do that?
Canada
One more
just
time.
over 4%. How difficult
There we
is
go.
it then, Dominic LeBlanc, to kind of project where that might go across the country, given how the Liberals are performing and the Conservatives are performing?
So that's a question, Rosemary, that I've asked myself for the last number of days when we expected some of the smaller parties, the NDP and the Green Party, not to pick up a lot of support. In Ontario, in British Columbia, even in provinces like Alberta, Manitoba, that could lead to a number of Liberal wins, of Liberal pickups in terms of seats. I'm quite confident, as I say, that we'll do very well at the end of the evening, but I certainly have seen, I saw it in my own riding, Rosemary, Sackville, New Brunswick's in my riding, where Mount Allison University is.
Sackville.
Traditional New Democratic vote in Sackville, New Brunswick, and some of the communities around Sackville.
Sackville.
It hasn't been showing up in the polls that I've seen, in the results I've seen. Didn't show up in the all candidates meeting I went to there 2 weeks ago. So I think you're right. We should ask ourselves what that means in some of the bigger provinces like Ontario or even British Columbia.
I did notice there, Dominic LeBlanc, that you used the M word. You used the word majority. Is that an expectation, a real expectation?
Sackfeld is what I thought he was saying. It's kind of like Seinfeld, but with sacks.
It's a hope, Rosemary, expectation. Look, Mr. Carney ran a great campaign. I think that we can absolutely finish with a Liberal majority government. That's certainly what I'm hoping for. I think it's realistic, but we have to wait for the votes to be counted. So I remain.
I had a professor who always used to do this.
Mr. Carney.
They called it the tickling the balls.
Okay, shouldn't you be at a party at this stage of the evening then?
You know what, Rosemary? I stayed here at my residence for an extra 10 minutes to talk to you, and now I'm probably going to.
172 is the magic number.
Got people waiting there, so thank you for noting that.
Okay, well, we can confirm that you're on your way in just a moment. Dominic LeBlanc, nice to speak with you.
This once again is a parliamentary system, so whoever
Thank you, Rosemary.
wins the most seats in Parliament
That's Dominic LeBlanc, re-elected.
gets to form a government with their
talking quite
party leader as
how the Liberals' evening
3 is the magic number, actually.
he says, but still possible that he says the Liberals could get to a majority. Let's go back to David Cochrane to give us a sense of what the parties are looking for next. That was hopeful optimism there from Dominic LeBlanc.
So a few things on that. You see the scoreboard there, 2310. One of those is the Gaspé Magdalen Islands, which has slipped from the block to the Liberals. It's 2210 in Atlantic Canada right now. 25-7 is at least what the Liberals wanted to see, maybe 10.
That's a lot of math.
The Conservatives wanted to see. We know the Conservatives have flipped one seat in Newfoundland and Labrador. Long Range Mountains has been projected elected. But we have not yet projected the Terra Nova and the Peninsula's riding and the St. John's East riding, so those are still in play. Part of the problem is this. We have more than 70% of the vote counted in Newfoundland and Labrador. We've just hit the 50% mark in Prince Edward Island, and we're below 50% in New Brunswick, in Nova Scotia, and only just over a third of the vote counted in New Brunswick. So it makes it very difficult to call some of the ridings when you're still under half of the vote there. So here we are. The Liberals wanted to be at 25, the Conservatives above 10. That's the state of play in Atlantic Canada. But let's broaden it out. Let's go into Quebec, because we're going to get in 23 minutes from Quebec to the Rocky Mountains. Those polls are going to close and results are going to start coming in, and we're going to lose track of some of these Atlantic Canada.
Oh shit! It's the 30 minutes. The polls I thought closed at the top of the hour. It's the bottom of the hour.
This blue, that is Bloc Québécois blue, not Conservative.
That's when we're going to get the deluge of numbers.
This is the key battleground for the Liberals. They need to dominate the island, and they need to move into the North Shore ridings. Oops, I just touched the map. Sorry about that, folks. That just shows you how sensitive it is. But they need to move into the North Shore ridings.
It's like a clit.
Where they are in fights with the Bloc Québécois. And this is why Yves-François Blanchet's closing argument is so important in this particular race, by saying that we know Marc Carney is going to win, the Mr. Blanchet decision desk said, but you can send more Bloc Québécois members to Ottawa to stand up for the interests of Quebec, trying to woo people back who had huddled around the image of Marc Carney for security in the early stages of the election. Jagmeet Singh making a similar argument in English Canada. So watch for that in terms of whether the Liberals, whatever ground they lose in Atlantic Canada, whether they can make it up here. They want their number to start with a 4. They want to be at 40 or above. Then we're going to get into Ontario, which is the key province in this election campaign because it has 122 seats. That's Newfoundland and Labrador, PEI, the North, BC, Alberta.
What's the orange where nobody fucking lives?
For the Conservatives to win here, they have got to storm the
NDP
905, which, as you can see, all around Toronto is red seat after red seat after red seat, except in Toronto-St. Paul's, where Don Stewart won that by-election last year that really started to catalyze a series of movements that got us to an election with Marc Carney as the Liberal leader. You need to see all of this turn blue tonight, or a lot of this turn blue tonight, and a lot of this turn blue tonight. If the Conservatives are going to continue the trend they may be starting in Atlantic Canada, the Liberals need that to hold. And where they were hunting for their majority in the final days was in southwestern Ontario. Not so much these blue Conservative seats, but the orange seat in Hamilton, the green seat in Kitchener, the orange in London, the orange in Windsor. This part of Canada is where the election story and the Trump story intersect at scale, because it is the home of the auto sector and the manufacturing sector. It is the most vulnerable part of the country to the trade threat presented by Donald Trump. So if the Liberals are below the 25 mark in Atlantic Canada, when all of these polls open, they need to be at 40 in Ontario, they need to be at 80 in Quebec, because they need to hit the Manitoba border at around 145. They think they can win a seat in northern Manitoba. There's going to be a fight in the Winnipeg area where you can see St. Boniface should be fine for them. But it's these two NDP seats where the Liberals have ambitions, where the NDP needs to hold in their quest for party status, and they think they can actually take some seats from the Conservatives in Winnipeg West and in Kildonan and St. Paul. They believe they have a shot in Saskatchewan up here. This is a Conservative seat in the House of Commons that was just dissolved, but with the redrawing of the boundaries and the overlaying of the vote from the last election, it projects to go Liberal. Just a projection. That would be where they hope to gain. And of course, Edmonton and Calgary, NDP, Conservative, and Liberal fights there. But if this continues, Rosie, if the Liberals underperform in the Atlantic, though as more votes come in, they get back closer to at least status quo, they need to pick up ground here and pick up ground here, because the chances for targets are narrower on the prairies and in the north, and then a whole lot could be riding on British Columbia. But they just got one more seat on their quest there, and that is because the CBC decision desk has elected Joanne Thompson in the riding of St. John's East, the fisheries minister in the Marc Carney government.
The fisheries minister.
And the last Liberal incumbent to seek re-election is returning to Ottawa, and the CBC's Carolyn Stokes is standing by at Joanne Thompson's headquarters. Carolyn, take it away.
Hi, David. Yes, I'm hearing that CBC is projecting that Joanne Thompson has held on to her seat, but actually not many people here in the room have heard that yet. We've had no reaction to this yet, so no cheering or anything, so we're just, here we go.
Oh, that's cool to get the reaction live.
From very, very happy people here. We're expecting Joanne Thompson to come out now and give a speech. Lots of celebration, as you can see. And a pretty good showing, it looks, for Joanne Thompson tonight.
Joanne Thompson. They did a really good job of breaking it down for us. I'm way more informed on what's going on.
With not as many Liberal colleagues from this province as before because of the loss in Long Range Mountains, and Clifford Small holding on to his seat. So, yeah, that.
Whenever we wrap up with this, when we get the
a lot of happy people.
official call on Prime Minister, we'll head over to Live Music Monday.
Beating David Brazel, a former leader of the provincial conservative.
Still got some news stories to cover.
The NDP. Rosie, I was getting texts from people there with Carolyn saying, why haven't you projected Joanne Thompson elected yet? We're going to change the channel, is what they were threatening to do. That's not why we did it. The numbers just got to the point that we could.
There's a little delay, just a delay between us saying it and it appearing on your TV screen. But that also nice to see when people get excited to win. Adrian is going to, as we get closer to the polls closing here, in many, many, many ridings, you've got a big one, and you're going to give us a sense of what we should watch for beyond the trends there that David was talking about.
Yeah, rolling up the sleeves, 122 seats to keep an eye on. Given what David was just saying, Rosie, about the pressure, definitely the Liberals want to pick up places that they won in 2020.
Michelle Ferrari.
Lost subsequently places.
Fierce looking. Look at her. She can be my GOP mommy.
21, the Conservative candidate, Michelle Ferrari, the incumbent former radio show host. Redistribution makes this one a little bit more of a potential pickup for the Liberals, but
former radio show host. She and I, we can get along.
Have spent important time there. Let's look at another one that David was referring to. This is one of those 4 NDP seats that were held in Ontario, Windsor West.
Hey, I wouldn't nog it. I'd take the Canadian visa if I could get it.
Polyev to Jagmeet Singh. Carney was there almost as soon as he became Prime Minister. He was back a few days ago. This one is one that, boy, the
simpy motherfucker.
On picking up if they can. One last one to look at that I think is really relevant.
Most of these people seem AI generated.
Again, the Liberals won it in 2015, then they lost.
Let's be to our Canadian friends.
By very few votes.
They probably say that about our representatives too. Have you seen some of them? Did you see Messy Tie Guy from earlier?
Last few days of this race.
Okay,
Rosie?
Adrian, thank you for that. Just wanted to give you a little update.
No, I'm staying. I'm gonna make them throw me in Gitmo.
Working now. So if you are still waiting to vote, if you're trying to get
Send me to fucking El Salvador, you
go to
fascist.
their website and you can put in your postal code and find out where you need to go. So that problem has been solved. And if you are wondering what's happening in your riding and the polling has closed for you, you can also find that on our website, cbc.ca/results. In case we have not mentioned your riding or you're just tuning in, that's a good place to go to find it. Catherine, you've got a lot coming up as well.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to be looking at results in Alberta and Quebec tonight.
I'm Trende Aragua. Come get me.
West with a sample of what we might see. Edmonton Centre. Now, this was Randy Boissonneau's old riding. Former cabinet minister, you'll recall, he resigned from cabinet in November when there was controversy involving his former business partner. The Liberal fight in this riding gets even harder because with redistribution, the changes in the riding
Are they a state or not?
would have gone conservative if you
I guess that's what we're finding out tonight.
federal election. Let's move to Quebec
If Canada goes conservative,
Châteauguay, Les Jardins, and Napierville.
they become the 51st state.
Riding Patrick O'Hara, he ran last time in 2021. He thought he had won on election night by more than 280 votes. Started making plans to go to Ottawa. There was a judicial recount. He lost by 12 votes. Now he is back. Redistribution in this instance favors the Bloc, but the Liberals have a star candidate, Nathalie Provost, known for her fight for gun control. Finally, the last vestige of the orange wave in Quebec. The only NDP MP in Quebec is Alexandre Bouleris in the riding of Rosemont.
Bouleris.
That is where we find the CBC's Quabina Oduro. Quabina, it has not been a terrific night for the NDP.
Damn, did you see the conservative candidate in that race? God damn.
Like in Rosemont.
She could be my GOP mommy.
Well, Catherine, the energy here is starting to pick up. More volunteers and more candidates are coming to join the party over here. I asked them about how they're feeling about how things are going so far. They said that they are optimistic that Alexandre Bouleris will keep his seat here in Rosemont, La Petite.
We've got about 15 minutes until polls close.
As you just mentioned, it's not
at the bottom of the hour. So we're going to do a little other news, and then we'll come back to this. Last week, our favorite congressman, I'm sad he's going to be gone. They're going to put him away because he's even been fun after he's been out of Congress. Our favorite former congressman, George Santos, got sentenced to, 8 years in prison? Asked the judge for leniency Check out this woman's yellow fucking suit. I love it.
Today, former
that
Long Island
pops.
Congressman George Santos asked a judge for mercy after being sentenced to more than 7 years in being sentenced to more than 7 years in prison. It was part of the fraud case that got him expelled from Congress. Jennifer McLogan looks at the journey that took him from Capitol Hill to prison.
The astonishing rise and fall of the former Republican.
I love this guy. I don't want to see him go away.
Fans, mostly detractors, were in federal court to hear George Santos cry for mercy as he apologized for his years of schemes and fabrications, wire fraud, and aggravated identity theft.
Listening to George Santos, he blamed everybody else but himself.
I bet.
Threw the book at him, the max. 87 months in prison for the expelled congressman whose lies turned him into a national joke. Wall Street financier, a college volleyball star whose loved ones survived the Holocaust and September 11th. All false.
It's a great I mean, he's a pathological liar, and he ran a fraud to take a seat in Congress.
A team of federal prosecutors worked on the case along with the FBI and Nassau DA.
Misleading his constituents and
I don't understand.
He told lie after lie.
As his world was folding in, he held his
And Trump's the president.
Court, tears falling.
It's George Santos.
A far cry from his cameos and podcasts.
You can call me a congressman.
After his guilty plea to remain in the spotlight and earn cash, prosecutors said that proved no remorse. Now known as a con man, Santos must pay $375,000 in restitution.
Donald Trump will commute his sentence.
Why? I hope he does.
And he should.
Santos
He should
not beg for a pardon. His attorneys asked the judge about protective custody once he begins his 7-year sentence. On Long Island, Jennifer McLogan, CBS News, New York.
Wow. You go to protective custody. Remember a couple of weeks ago when there was this weird police chase? It ended in this neighborhood with a suspect in his underwear, like watering flowers, trying to fit in after he ran. We saw the dash cam footage of the wreck happening like a week later. Now we have the body cam footage of the cops shooting the wife of Weezer's bassist.
Drop the gun! You're gonna get shot! Tonight, newly released footage showing the heart-pounding standoff between Los Angeles police. It's the police! Drop the gun! And Julian Schreiner, a best-selling author and wife of Weezer bassist Scott Schreiner. Is there another entryway? The confrontation unfolded last month in her Los Angeles backyard. Shots fired, shots fired. As officers were in the neighborhood searching for suspects involved in an unrelated hit and run on a nearby freeway. One of those suspects seen here running through backyards. Look as surveillance video released by LAPD captures Schreiner walking in her backyard, a gun in her right hand. Put it down on the ground! For several minutes, officers yell from behind a fence. Yeah, put the gun down, okay? Repeating commands to drop the weapon.
Hey, she just pointed it. Not at us, but she just lifted it up.
Instead, in this video, zoomed in and annotated by police, they say she racked the gun, pointed at them, and fired.
Oh, she racked it?
Police fire several rounds hitting Schreiner, who appears to calmly walk away from the officers. Police say this 911 call was placed after the shooting.
She says there were 3 men and one of them shot her, and the cops are looking for him right now.
Police have not identified the two people speaking to the dispatcher.
I had my gun. Okay. And he said, put down that gun, put down that gun. I said, put down your gun. Oh, and then he shot me.
Police say Schreiner surrendered to officers an hour later. She's seen in this body camera footage lying face down in the middle of the street, arms stretched out wide. She's injured but alive.
She shot on her arm. Do you want to cuff her?
Officers approach and handcuff her.
Put your hand in your back.
2 officers fired those rounds, hitting Schreiner in the shoulder, police say. No one else was hurt. The 51-year-old was treated at a hospital and booked on suspicion of attempted murder of an officer.
And Dana Griffin joins us
Wow.
in Los Angeles. Dana, we're also getting news about the physical
It's like shot in the dirt.
recovered at the scene. What are we learning?
Yeah, so Stephen, investigators say they recovered a Glock 9mm handgun Schreiner was armed with, as well as a spent casing you see here on your screen. Jail records show that Schreiner posted a $1 million bond and is due in court April 30th. So far, no criminal charges have been filed by prosecutors who are still reviewing the evidence in this case. Schreiner's manager telling NBC News she has no comment at this time.
Shut up, Lester.
Breaking news.
I'm on her side. I don't think she did anything wrong. We've seen as we knew it up until this point, I didn't know that she fired a shot, but she didn't fire it at them. And if you go by what she said in the phone call to police, she did not know that those were cops on the outside of her fence. She thought they might have been the suspect. So I'm totally on her side on this one. And she, if she had shot a cop, I'd still be on her side. To our friends in the Northeast, you need to be on the lookout. There might be a serial killer on the loose. Multiple bodies have popped up in 2 states, I think, 3 states.
Maria, the FBI says there is no known threat. Local law enforcement is saying it doesn't look like the cases are connected, but social media continues to fuel fear and chatter. The body of a woman found on a bike path in Springfield, boosting online conspiracy theories and web pages about a possible serial killer targeting New England. In March and April, the remains of 8 people, mostly women, have been found in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island.
I think what you have to remember with the internet is there are no guardrails on the comments.
Former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis cautions people not to believe everything they see online.
There's a lot of misinformation, and people really need to use critical thinking skills when they see something.
There's no critical thinking skills.
In Narragansett, Rhode Island, police searched a beach with cadaver dogs after a Facebook post alluded to bodies buried in the sand. They found nothing.
Why are the police listening to social media?
The Hamden DA says at this time there is no indication that these incidents are connected to each other, or are they a part of a larger public safety threat. And in Plymouth, where a skull was found in March, the DA says the investigation is ongoing, adding, the skull is with the State Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. We urge anyone with credible information to contact Mass State Police or Plymouth Police. Davis says it just doesn't make sense to try to cover up a serial killer.
If you have a serial killer, you get additional resources from the federal, state governments. Frankly, if I had a serial killer or I suspected there was one operating, I'd be telling everybody so I could get as much help as I could.
Now, Davis says Boston police were confronted with a similar situation several years ago when bodies of young men began turning up in the harbor. They determined these cases
the Bay Harbor Butcher
and released as much information as early as they could to quell any conspiracies. Live in Cambridge, Sean Ritzketti, WCVB News Center 5.
It was the Bay Harbor Butcher. We're going to go to, I think this happened in Florida, Jacksonville. This happened in Jacksonville. Bystanders were able to stop a suspect from being able to drag a woman and her kids in an SUV.
The moments a mother and her children narrowly escaped with their lives thanks to strangers who jumped in. Police in Jacksonville, Florida, out with new video they say shows a group of good Samaritans stepping in to stop a man from driving off with this woman's children after a violent domestic dispute. The video blurred by police to conceal the identities of minors. You can see the moment 2 bystanders realize something is wrong. The car speeding away with the woman's legs dangling out the open door. They appear to yell at the driver to stop, and within moments, a crowd of people descend from every angle, forcing the car to come to a halt. The group helping the mother and her children out of the vehicle. The driver seen getting out of the car to yell at the crowd before getting back in and driving away. But later that day, officers from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
So it was like the parent
26
trying to kidnap his own kid.
He's got a weed in plain view right here.
Police say they found marijuana in his car, along with 2 magazines of .45 caliber ammunition. He's charged with 5 counts, including child neglect and false imprisonment, both felonies. According to the police affidavit, the incident began with a domestic dispute when Human and the victim, who were in a relationship, were driving to the DMV. The affidavit says that he hit her in the face while driving and became even more enraged when they arrived late to their appointment. She tried to get out of the car with her children, just 6 months and 2 years old. That's when Human grabbed her and tried to drive away, dragging her and one of the children through the parking lot. Human has pled not guilty to all charges and is out on bond before a pretrial hearing next week. A potential tragedy averted by bystanders who didn't stand by. Marissa Parra, NBC News.
Shut up, Lester.
Stay updated about breaking news and top stories.
I knew it was coming. We're about 3 minutes away from the polls closing in a large chunk of the country. I've got a cat just sneezing over and over and again. You've heard of the Easter Bunny. What about the Weed Bunny? Man allegedly hid marijuana. Bubby, you okay? That's like how many times I sneeze. Man allegedly hid marijuana and Easter eggs across the city and posted clues on social media. This happened in Lufkin, Texas. Police said they were searching for a man who allegedly hid plastic Easter eggs across the city. My cat is allergic to my bullshit. Possibly. He allegedly hid plastic eggs across his city containing marijuana. Posted clues on it. Bubby, did you get into something? Did you get into something in there in the kitchen? He's like licking it. He's licking his nose and shit. Over here, Bubby? Talk to him, Socks. Or sneeze for him. Oh, God. You got into that coke? I don't have any cocaine. I had some shrooms. I don't have those anymore. According to a press release from the Lufkin Police Department, officers received a tip about a Facebook account that was posting about plastic eggs full of marijuana hidden in various parks around the city as part of a scavenger hunt. The suspect posted 4 photos on Facebook showing each location as hints to locate the eggs. He also posted a photo of 5 plastic eggs in the seat of a vehicle. Officers found 4 eggs and believed he had not placed the 5th. Officers learned that they were incorrect in their assumption when a man and his granddaughter turned the final egg into the department the next day, having also found it in the park. In total, officers said they recovered over 1/4 ounce of marijuana. That's not a lot. I paid $15 for 1/4 of like swag at the store the other day. Investigators identified Avante Nicholson as the suspect behind the scavenger hunt by combing through his Facebook account. They also found statements referencing selling narcotics on multiple occasions, and he was trying to drum up business. He had his business card in the eggs. And in the post, he states whoever shopped with him the day of the scavenger hunt would get hints to the locations of the eggs, the department wrote in the release. Police were not, this is just capitalism. He's just participating in capitalism, that's all. Police were not able to locate Nicholson before publishing the release and noted that they were still searching for him. And we've got no update that I know of. The marijuana bunny. Polls have now closed in much of the country of Canada.
The way the Liberals wanted the evening to start. It's an encouraging sign for the Conservatives. But remember, it was just 3 months ago that the Liberals thought that they were kind of hopeless, not only in forming government, but certainly in losing a lot of seats in Atlantic Canada. So that is part of the story as well, the recovery of the Liberals that we've seen after Mark Carney took over. Ian Hannah-Mansick.
There are two ridings in New Brunswick right now where our decision desk is not in a position where it can project a win, and one of them is Miramichi Grand Lake. We told you at the beginning of the evening that this could be close. It is the one riding that 4 years ago flipped, in that case from the Liberals to
so apparently not turning out to be the night that the Liberals were hoping for and that projections were showing.
72 is the lead for Mike Dawson over Lisa Harris. And the other one I want to show you, which is still in play, is Madawaska Restigouche.
It's a lot like election night has gone in the United States.
The last, one of the interesting things when you look at the numbers here for Madawaska Restigouche is that the Liberal candidate, not the incumbent, is performing at about the same level that René Arsenault did the last 3 times. It is.
I would vote for you for Prime Minister Holiday
compared to last time, and so relatively closer, I think, Rosemary, than a lot of people expected. So these are the two ridings in New Brunswick which are still at this point in the evening in play.
Okay, thank you for that. Ian, polls now closed in an additional 266 ridings, meaning that we are going to get a lot of information very quickly about where Canadians are at. Want to bring in At Issue, if I can, just for a moment, to get a sense, Chantal, of what you're going to watch for now, as so many more polls have now closed.
Well, obviously, what happens to the Bloc Québécois vote, whether it's going to be down, as was predicted, or whether the Bloc will hold its ground. The only riding that we actually have numbers for, Gaspésie, les Îles de la Madeleine, and I'm not even sure that we're getting
up to 4 for the Bloc,
because a section of the riding is actually on the same time zone, in the same time zone as the rest of Quebec.
I see.
So, but this riding, which we will get a result, a more definitive result early, is significant. It's actually 2 ridings because of redistribution.
Right.
A former Bloc riding and a Liberal-held riding. So someone is going to lose a seat here. And if the Bloc...
We're going to stick with you guys,
as opposed to the Liberals,
until we find out who the Prime Minister is going to be.
Then they would have otherwise. But the big area to watch, obviously,
and since it's looking like it's going to be closer than
in and around
what was predicted, it could be a little bit later in the evening.
The Bloc, with some battles in Quebec City, mostly against Conservatives.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Andrew, in just a minute. But Ian's got some results because you can see the numbers on your screen moving there.
Yeah, counting super quickly in Battleford's Lloydminster Meadow Lake in Saskatchewan. We already have a few of the votes counted, and there are a couple of things that are notable about the results to this point. First of all, this is a riding where you'd expect Rosemary Falk to win. She has already, and her vote share in 2019 was 78%. In 2021, 69%, and it's even greater at this point.
I think the Liberals are still going to get it.
Reasons for that may be that Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan, is now part of this.
But it's going to be closer than what was predicted, because it was looking like it was going to be a blowout.
Part of the Desnethe, Mississippi, Churchill River riding. The fact that it's now moved in redistribution, Rosemary, is good news potentially for the Liberals. It makes that more likely a place where the Liberals could pick up. And the Liberals.
I'm kind of upset nobody has noticed that I used Bret Hart as the troll head.
2015.
On my Canadian graphics.
Conservatives have won all of the Saskatchewan ridings in 2019 and 2021.
Okay, Catherine Cullen, I believe, has some early results.
We've got some early results coming in from Quebec. Let's start with a new riding, Les Pays d'en Haut, where you can see, Rosemary, this is an area, now, again, only 2 polls reporting, but based on redistribution, this is an area we'd expect to go Bloc, but the Liberals have a candidate, a local mayor in the riding, who is going to have a little bit of name recognition. Let's move on to Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord.
Found, welcome in.
Conservative fight, so interesting to see the Liberals in the middle of that mix, but again, only 1 poll reporting. We will move on to Terrebonne, where the Bloc incumbent, Nathalie Sinclair-Desgagnés, is in the lead. And another really exciting riding to watch in this
Desgagnés.
A 3-way race in 3 rivers, Trois-Rivières.
Caroline.
Now, the Liberal candidate in this case...
Oh, who's it? This Van Patry.
From the Outaouais, Yves Levesque.
With his bow tie.
And René Villemure, the Bloc candidate, who is the incumbent here, actually had to have surgery for cancer in the middle of the race. It is a riding that we've seen a lot of the leaders visit. Very
We've seen the Bloc put several up on the board.
Yeah, I was talking to our colleague Louis Blouin today, who says that none of the parties knew what was going to happen here. And to be fair, it is a riding that I have visited several times covering federal elections, always a little bit hard to read. Andrew, what are you watching for now as more polls are reporting?
172 is the magic number tonight.
Well, there's been two things happening. We've been focusing on how the race has been tightening between the Conservatives and the Liberals.
Right.
There's also been a bit of a bump up in the Bloc support in Quebec in the last couple of weeks of the campaign. And why that's important, you know, in a first past the post system, everything's on such a knife edge. Small little differences in the popular vote can lead to major changes in the seats. What was really working for the Liberals when they were projecting 45 seats in Quebec was the Bloc and the Conservative vote was almost perfectly equally divided. And that's an ideal thing for a front runner. If the Bloc starts getting ahead of the Conservatives, then that, you know, a lot of seats can move on that. Similarly, in Ontario, you know, it's easy to, we often say the national numbers don't mean that much, it's regional. Well, the race had been tightening in Ontario as well. And Ontario votes, the seats have traditionally been so closely fought that a relatively small tightening in the popular vote again.
We are done with the news for tonight.
Swings and seats. So
this should be where the action
how much of that tightening was
comes fast and furious at us with the Canadian election.
Althea, I'm going to come back to you, but first I want to get to Adrian, who's got some results.
Yeah, absolutely, Rosie. Thank you. What everyone is looking for in a province like Ontario is a flip. And in some very early results, we're starting to see one. Let's begin with Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke. Now, one poll of 262, a lead of only 5.
Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke?
Held on to Algonquin, the Conservative Party has held on to this riding since 2000. Cheryl Gallant, a longtime MP there. Just a lead of 5, but everyone immediately always looks for flips. You're not seeing a lot, though, in the early results. Let's look at Haldimand, Norfolk, Leslyn Lewis there. That's a sizable lead already, 737, with only 5 of 266 polls reporting, counting very fast there. One more to look at, if we can. David McGinty, one poll, but already a lead of 1,000 over the Conservative. That is...
Not surprising.
No,
for
I was
David
about to say it's been a Liberal riding since 1988. So,
and he got in cabinet for the very first time. What was it, Justin Trudeau that put him in cabinet? Yeah, Justin Trudeau.
Yes.
Yeah, and then he stayed there with Mark Carney. So he would like to hold on to that and stay in his cabinet job. Ian, you have some results.
Yeah, we have 2 results in Manitoba so far, Winnipeg West, and at this point, it's really early. I show you this, though, not so much because of the count, but that this is a riding that both the Conservatives...
Oh my God! Look at this Uncle Baby Billy looking fucker down here.
Match between Marty Morantz, the
green guy with the crazy hair,
who used to be the MP.
Don't tell me he didn't used to be a fucking preacher or some shit.
The evening, the other result we're getting right now from Manitoba is riding.
If he's not, he should be.
Lead for Dan Mazur. He is the incumbent MP there. He's won the last 2 elections with huge margins. So even though it's early there, this is probably an indication of how Riding Mountain will go, Rosemary.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see the count continuing to trickle.
Take a pause for a moment in terms of where we are tonight. As we've said, most of the polls in this country have now closed. British Columbia, of course, and Yukon still to come. But as we see those results start to come in, take a look at where they're at. Liberals leading or elected in 37, Conservatives 26, and the Bloc at 9. Nothing yet for
NDP now on the board.
Popped up, of course, as I said that, leading in 1. If you want to see who has been confirmed,
I just seen it over here on the other
or have it open
monitor.
as you're listening to us. CBC.ca/results is where you can find that. A lot of people also asking me about advanced polls.
I do have.
Yes, there was a huge number of you that voted on those advanced.
The large board up here.
It is up to every polling station to decide when they count those. You can count them as early as 2 hours before, or you can count them right at the end. So you're right. Sometimes that will impact the results. Lots of you are watching for that, but we simply don't know when they're getting counted in each polling station, but they will get counted. So not to worry about that. I'm going to go back to the panel now. Althea, you haven't had a chance to weigh in so far on what you're watching for now, as so many other polls close, and you've also been joined by a fellow you know well, Jason Kenney, former Alberta Premier and Conservative Cabinet Minister. We'll get to him first, but what are you watching for now?
I'm actually not watching the results coming in because one poll doesn't really tell you a ton.
You said it.
But I still find the results out east really interesting. Yep. The fact that Sean Fraser is struggling to hold on to his riding. This is a seat that Pierre Poilievre actually visited just last week and had a big rally with Elmer MacKay and Peter MacKay. This is, of course, the seat that they held. And what you see in Atlantic Canada, what you hear from candidates at the door is that the pitch is Pierre Poilievre's party is not the party of progressive conservatives anymore. So come and vote or lend your vote to the Liberals and Mark Carney, who probably is more aligned with your values. At least that's the Liberals' pitch. And you're seeing that that pitch clearly is not working in Central Nova, and that coming out with those two huge figures in that riding may have made a difference. At the same time, you're seeing South Shore St. Margaret's, which is traditionally a very conservative seat, possibly flipping Liberal, which is also quite interesting. And it's like there's bad news for both parties because the Cape Breton-Canso Antigonish seat, there with the candidate that was running, the Conservative candidate, is the former provincial finance minister. And that is the kind of riding the Conservatives needed to win if they were to form government. So there's not a ton of great news, frankly, for both parties, and the Liberals are underperforming their own, but so, frankly, are the Conservatives.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously you can see the numbers. They're moving on your screen, fast and furious. They're going to go up and down because we don't have actually that many people projected elected at this stage. It's really just leading and a few, well, the people out of the Maritimes mostly projected elected. Jason Kenney, you're hearing from people, talking to people, watching things. What are you making?
Yes, I think that most Conservatives are hoping that this trend continues. Now, look, in the pre-election polls, one of the toughest regions for the Conservatives was Atlantic Canada. So to see them being competitive, I think is very encouraging. Sure. There were some polls going into this week indicating that things were narrowing quite a bit in Ontario. I think the last Abacus poll had 44-42. Let me tell you, if Conservatives get a significant turnout advantage on that kind of number, you could see very significant close races all through what I referred to earlier as the GTA Metro Belt, that 905 swath
the Grand Theft Auto bill
constituencies that have a tendency to vote monolithic. But if the NDP collapses that bad, and if these soft NDP voters don't actually show up for Mr. Carney, or many of them actually go to Mr. Poilievre on that appeal to blue collar trades and working people, you could actually see the Conservatives, I think, splitting the 905 or even winning a plurality of seats in that region, and that would make for a very long night.
Would you all agree that we are not seeing an election of a wave, or are we? Is it too soon to even say that? Well, okay, too soon. Okay, too soon. Okay, all right. Andrew rolled his eyes at me.
That's my opinion. I don't know.
Okay.
The Liberals have done worse so far in Atlantic Canada than they did last time when they got a minority.
Yeah.
So if Atlantic Canada is any kind of indication,
Chantal?
I'm with Althea. It's a bit early.
Okay. Catherine Cullen's got some results from Quebec.
Some early results. Let's just emphasize that, Rosemary.
Got it.
We're going to check in on some exciting races, starting with...
Oh, shit. Is Poilievre going to win this?
We were telling you earlier that this was the riding that was decided by 12 votes in a judicial recount last time around. Patrick O'Hara is back. He told my excellent colleague on the House, Emma Godmere, that he has been thinking about this race every single day since last time around. He's up against a Liberal star candidate in Nathalie Provost. Let's check in Berthier-Masquinongé. The interesting name there that Canadians are going to remember is the NDP candidate, Ruth Ellen Brosseau, known to much of the country as Vegas Girl, because in the time of the Orange Wave in 2011...
Vegas Girl?
Vegas during the campaign, but things have changed a lot for Ruth Ellen Brosseau. She lives in the riding now. She is a farmer. They, in fact, raise boar and bison, despite the fact that she is a vegetarian. But it does appear that it is going to be some difficult sledding based on just the first poll for Ruth Ellen Brosseau. And we want to take a look to Abitibi Bay James Nunavut EU. The Liberals have a candidate here that they're pretty excited about, Mandy Gull Masty. She was the first female Grand Chief of the Cree Nation government. She actually stepped away from that term in order to run for the Liberals. But the Bloc really want to hold on to this seat. Yves-François Blanchet went all the way. This is a northern riding. He went up to visit it to try to give Sylvie Bérubé a bit of a boost. So, again, this is another riding folks are going to be watching closely tonight. It'll be interesting to see how that race shakes out.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that, Catherine Cullen. Just a couple of numbers to keep in your mind as well. David's going to give us a few more. But in order for the Liberals to reach...
More polls closing at the top of the hour.
18 seats. They are not on that path so far. The Conservatives, though, needed to gain 44. So I don't think anyone is on that path so
Not
far,
right
but
now,
it's
no.
early. It's early.
It's a night of early results, Rosie.
Yep.
Let's face it, we still don't have some seats called in Atlantic Canada. So look, right now there's a couple of seats in Atlantic Canada that are very close, and within one riding I'm looking at, there's only 5 of the advanced polls in. There's still like 20 more advanced polls to come in, and this is why some of these aren't being called. So we've been talking about the Atlantic for a while. Let's look at where we're getting results now, you know, now that Quebec to the Rockies is open. Right now, it's a hodgepodge, but just to show you, for example, look, this is the island of Montreal. The battleground is the North Shore and the Shore Shore ridings. It's all gray. This is like the big chunk of seats that's going to determine a lot of the storyline tonight. So you're looking at the scoreboard at the bottom of the screen. The big ridings where a lot of people live in Quebec have still not come in yet. Let's go to Ontario, and let me give you a pretty good example of that. You're seeing some red in the north and different things like that, but let's go to the Greater Toronto area. Very few results, very early, right? So this is that belt that Jason Kenney was talking about, Mississauga and Brampton and up in the York region. That's the battleground between the Liberals and the Conservatives in Ontario for first place. We have almost nothing from there at this point in the night. Similar thing, I believe, in southwestern Ontario when we go there. This is where the Conservatives are very strong in some of the rural areas, but we've got Windsor, we've got London, we've got Kitchener, we've got Hamilton. If I'm going to extend southwestern Ontario beyond its normal definition, we still have nothing from there. And it's a similar story out on the prairies, okay? You go into Manitoba, you see the blue seat there, but look, Winnipeg, we have one riding. You know, the bulk of the population in Winnipeg, there is no reporting from there yet. So it's still very early in terms of being able to draw any firm conclusions about where this is going. Same thing in Saskatchewan. Nothing from Regina. Nothing from Saskatchewan.
Nothing from your vagina.
Alberta. Right? You see orange right there. But look,
Why am I'm like a teenager.
Leduc, Wetaskiwin. Cars cost less in Wetaskiwin. New Democrats don't often win in Wetaskiwin. That is a conservative riding historically, and so you got to keep that in mind. Here in Calgary, where it's expected to be the battleground, where the Liberals hope to gain, you've only got 2 conservative seats reporting at this point in time. Similar thing in Edmonton. You do not have results yet from the bulk of the ridings in the big cities of Canada at this point of the night. So while it's 57, 43, 10, and 1, that 1, Rosie, is in Leduc, Wetaskiwin. I believe that's where Pierre Poilievre had that massive Edmonton rally, because that's the riding where the airport is.
17.
If the Democrats win that, nobody knows anything about this election, and everyone.
Nobody.
I mean, I'm willing to accept that. Let's.
I stunted my growth at 17.
So early
that
results,
makes
lots
sense.
of results flooding in, and as you can see there at the bottom of your screen, 11 minutes now before polls close in British Columbia and Yukon. But let's look at the share of the vote to start to get a sense of the story so far this evening. 51.2% for the Liberals, 39.7% for the Conservatives. The NDP and the Bloc still in very, very low numbers there. Let me show you what that looks like in terms of seat change so far, right? And this is leading and elected. This is not the full picture yet, but look, the Liberals are up 13. And it looks like, at least at this stage of the evening, that it is at to the expense of the Bloc Québécois down 12 and the Conservatives 1. If that kind of trend were to continue, that would be encouraging for the Liberals. That would mean that they would come out of Quebec having gained some seats and some more strength, frankly, than they perhaps needed. We're not there yet, but that's what that is pushing towards, and we'll keep our eye on Quebec to see how many of those things turn into actual flips for the Liberal Party. Let's look now at Mark Carney, the Liberal leader, watching results as they come in there with his wife, Diana Fox Carney. He's just, well, he was watching us. That's also good.
Of course he was watching you.
To see the results of his own riding. He is putting himself up for public office for the very first time in the riding of Nepean. We'll keep our eye on how he's doing in his own riding. Okay, let's go to Adrian now, who's got some results from Ontario.
We do, yeah, we do, Rosie. Really interesting. I'd really like to start with Kapuskasing, Timmins, Mushkegowuk. This was Charlie Angus's riding, right? This is
Kapuskasing, Timmins, and Mushkegowuk.
In the north. Could it be that we're looking at an orange-blue transition? So far, no. Steve Black, who's the former mayor and the city councillor in Timmins, has a lead of 79. Just 3
of 10 minutes to the next polls close.
Have to keep an eye on. This will matter.
The 65 libs,
including the NDP, of course. So let's move
172
on.
is the magic number.
Markham-Stouffville. Again, Helena Jazik was the incumbent there. With one of 217, you already have, for the police officer, the Conservative candidate, a lead of 65 there. That is the sort of flip that the Conservatives will really want to hang on to.
There's only one of the 217 polls reporting, though.
Is Essex. So Chris Lewis, this was held by the Conservatives for I guess it's been
up to 68 libs.
Race basically in the past with Liberals in
69 libs, nice.
Chris Sutton, who's
I was waiting for it to hit 69. I'm gonna go take a piss. I'll be right back.
Lead of 42, just 4 of 278 polls reporting. But that whole area, the cross-border relations, it wraps itself around Windsor. You can imagine the tariff conversations that have been happening there. No one knows that better than Chris Ensing, who is joining us now. Chris, what are people saying there?
Adrian, the tariff's top of mind. You know, talking to voters here today in Windsor West, the riding I'm in right now, where the NDP are hoping to secure Brian Massey's seat as the longtime incumbent. Voters were telling me that who is going to battle Donald Trump in these conversations and negotiations of a new NAFTA is top of mind. That threat against Canada's sovereignty is also something that they're taking very seriously. And when we think about what's happened here in Windsor, Essex, just in the past, you mentioned in Essex how the NDP have been sparring with the Conservatives, the Liberal in there now. Well, you also have this fight going on in Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore, where the Liberals have eked out wins with slim majorities or slim wins there in that riding. And so what we see in Windsor-Essex is an area that is trying to decide what it will do next in the face of this trade war.
I think we should get more high.
Here, Trump is saying they want to.
That sounds like the thing to do right now.
There now. Well, we watched this with Biden as well. That administration throwing credits at battery plants that want to build in one of these countries. Well, the battery plant that came here that is promising more than 2,500 jobs for vehicles built in Windsor, well, people are starting to wonder what is going to happen there once this election finishes and once these negotiations finish up. When we're talking about that new NAFTA, it's something where that deal was renegotiated with the IRA credits to make sure that that plant stayed here under the Trudeau government. And now people are wondering what its future holds as well. That's what's in the mind of voters as they try and decide who they're going to pick to lead them moving forward here, Adrian.
Okay, Chris, you might be.
The number is starting to move quickly. Less than 100 needed.
Thanks, Chris.
Liberals.
I'm going to go to Ian now.
Let's take a look at Desnethe.
Obtain the majority and
in Saskatchewan. Redistribution
the prime ministership.
The Liberals had a chance to pick this seat up, have a chance to pick this seat up. Still, obviously, really early in the counting. And Jim Lemaigre is a former Saskatchewan Party MLA. Buckley Belanger is a former NDP, MLA, both high profile, both
Buckley Belanger,
strong candidates by their parties, and we are going to be watching this riding very closely because if the Liberals were able to win this riding, it would be their first win, as I mentioned before, since Ralph Goodale won in Regina, Wascana back in 2015.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. I can tell you that at this hour, more than 1 million votes have been counted, and obviously the counting continues. Of course, there were also more than 7.3 million of you that voted in the advance polls, but lots of vote counting going on right now to bring you some of these results that you're seeing here at the bottom of your screen. Take a look. Those numbers are leading and elected. So the Liberals are leading and elected in 80 ridings at this stage, Conservatives 56, Bloc on the board with 11, NDP with just 1, where they are leading.
We don't know yet, Torji. Very early in the night. Welcome in.
If the Liberals were trying to form a majority government, they needed to pick up 18 seats. The Conservatives needed to pick up 44. The Liberals have picked up 15 so far. So those not all confirmed, but that is the trend
looking
so far.
Good for the Liberals.
As more polls about to close in British Columbia and the Yukon. Catherine Cullen.
Yes, let's talk about Alberta. Rosemary, we're going to start with the first
So 5 minutes until all the polls close, I believe.
Desk. Michelle Rempel-Garner.
Michelle Rempel-Garner can be my GOP mommy. Look at her.
That caucus, that big smile on her face because she is the first Conservative that the CBC Decision Desk says has been re-elected to her seat. Let's take a look, though, at some other interesting races. Edmonton Southeast, part of what makes this interesting, Amarjeet Sohi, former Liberal cabinet minister under Justin Trudeau, he was defeated. He ran for mayor of Edmonton. He won. He has stepped away from his mayoral duties to run in this seat, but it is worth noting it is a new riding, and if you look at what the numbers say from the 2021 election results, this is a riding that should go Conservative right now with the first poll reporting. The Conservative is in the lead in that riding. Let's move on to Edmonton Northwest. Billy Morin, this is the candidate the Conservatives are certainly excited about. Former chief of the Enoch Cree Nation, very enthusiastic about resource development and somebody.
I like to be playing video games right now.
Caucus. Finally, in Lethbridge, Rachel Thomas. Now, what
we're doing politics.
So interesting. Certainly, it is traditional Conservative territory. But Chris Spearman, the Liberal candidate there, former mayor of Lethbridge, he was endorsed by the provincial NDP former cabinet minister Shannon Phillips. So note, NDP provincial cabinet minister endorsing a Liberal candidate. Also, Rosie, provincially, Lethbridge is 2 ridings. Lethbridge West, that went NDP. So perhaps some movement here, but Rachel Thomas definitely has some reason for enthusiasm as well. This is serious Conservative territory.
Another strong member of the Conservative caucus. Jason Kenney, want to weigh in there on Michelle Rumpel-Garner winning re-election, the first Conservative re-elected in Alberta?
Yeah, well,
not surprising.
Not surprising that any of those folks would be well in the lead, and I think it's confirmation at early stage that the strong Conservative support in Alberta is holding. There are some phenomenal new candidates as well. You just saw Billy Morin on the screen. I've worked very closely with him as Premier. He was chief of the Enoch Cree First Nation, and really a significant leader.
There's still 188 seats up for grabs.
Nations in Western Canada.
172 needed for the majority.
Former chief councillor of the Haisla First Nation out in the BC West Coast Kitimat.
Sitting at 84
if those
currently.
Two are elected, you will see 2 very strong voices for reconciliation for First Nations.
The Conservatives is actually
not just
62 over here.
To say no in consultation, but to say yes to responsible resource development. So one of the interesting aspects of this campaign has been energy has not been a dominant, but a significant issue, perhaps for the first time ever. And you may end up with some very strong pro-resource development First Nations leaders in the next Parliament.
And that may be because of Donald Trump. Really, that's why we're talking about it in a different way than we had before. Okay, thank you for that, Jason Kenney.
On their Donald Trump shit,
Columbia in just
as Mac Miller would say.
Which will add another 44.
He wasn't dead.
Another 44 polls to our count, and which will mean that all polls are closed right across the country. That happens at 10 p.m. Eastern. 343 seats, remember, because there has been a map that has been redistributed. 172 is the magic number to get you to a majority government, but we are not able to get anywhere near calling any of those things yet because results are still coming in, and Adrian has some.
Still early in the night.
Coming in fast, Rosie.
I told you.
All right, let's look at some important ridings that we've been talking about all night. Let's start with Peterborough, because this has always been a riding to watch.
Oh, no.
Whether Buck the
Michelle Ferrari, I love you. Don't go.
A popular team.
I don't want you to lose. It's only 6
Look at that lead.
308.
6 for Emma Harrison, the small business owner, with just 6 of 308 polls reporting.
Michelle Ferrari needs to be my GOP mommy.
Let's look at the next one here. This is important. Newmarket Aurora. Okay, so this was the second slimmest margin.
You mean the orange one? The orange is the NDP.
But look at what has happened.
I think it's orange. It's orange, right?
Lead of 227, just 2 of 212's polls reporting, but that is on trend. Certainly for what the Conservatives.
I've argued with people over colors before. It's possible that I don't see them like other people.
This is important. This is Niagara Falls, Niagara on the Lake. So this has gone back and forth a little bit between the Liberal and the Conservative this evening. Only 3
let's get high towards you.
polls reporting, just a lead of 8. But this is a riding that's been Conservative for the last 25 years. It's definitely
less than 30 seconds till the next polls close.
Help them out, Rosie.
Okay, but a very, very small lead of 8 votes, so we'll see. Mark Carney was down there pretty recently as well, making his case about Canada, the U.S., and taking on Donald Trump, another area where, of course, that argument resonates very strongly. Okay, polls closing in British Columbia and the Yukon in just moments. If you're in line to vote, stay there, because you still get to do it even after the polls are closed. It is 7 p.m. Pacific. Polls are now closing in the westernmost parts of this country. There are 43 ridings in beautiful British Columbia and 1 in the Yukon. That means that polls have closed right across the country, 343 polls reporting. And British Columbia, aren't you excited? We haven't called government yet. That rarely happens to you. So guess what? Your votes are going to matter here as we get ready to decide where this is going to go. Let's give you an indication of what we're noticing already, and that is the change in the share of vote. Liberals taking off now at this stage, well over 50%, and the Conservatives at 38.8, which, to be clear, is a very good score for Conservatives on any other normal election. But this election has been unusual, and you can see the NDP and the Bloc not performing where they normally would be. That, too, has been the story of this election. Let me show you now what seat change looks like.
Red is Liberal, blue is the Conservative.
Liberals seem to be at this stage leading in
the light blue is the
seats.
Like French Canadian bloc.
Bloc down 11. That would be a devastating amount of losses for the Bloc Québécois in Quebec. NDP down 1. Of course, that is going to change as British Columbia starts to report. But remember, that number to keep in your head here about
Minty,
is for the Liberals to gain 18
I shouldn't have done that. That's racist.
now in our projections. Not everything confirmed, but they are tracking towards that at this hour. And a lot
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's pretty much what it seemed when they did the breakdown.
Yeah, let's try to look a little bit closer at what
turquoise, the Bloc.
Bloc Québécois. Let's start with looking a bit at the
Bloc
big
Québécois.
Quebec, the seat change. The Liberals up 14 seats. The Bloc down 11, the Conservatives losing 3 seats in Quebec. But again, these are still relatively early numbers. Let's dig into some of what we're seeing in the province. Here is a riding that folks are going to remember the name of, La Salle, Émard, Verdun. That consequential by-election in the fall, it's on the island of Montreal. This is part of the Liberal Chateau Fort, right, of Fortress. And yet, the Bloc Québécois, Louis-Philippe Sauvé, a former Bloc won in that by-election.
Sorry.
Now, the Liberals have something of a star candidate in Claude Gay, former president of IBM Canada. Right now, with 2 polls reporting, he's in the lead by almost 300 votes. Let's move over to Shefford, where, again, the Bloc Québécois incumbent, Andréane LaRouche, in second. And in the lead, the Liberal candidate, Felix Dion, I believe he's a councillor in Granby.
It could not get more French. Avalon, welcome in.
Alexander Reifert.
We're doing Canadian election coverage. I'm sticking with you until
in the area, English
we have a call for who is
Blanchette-Jonca in second. So all
going to be able to form a government.
These are only some of the polls that are coming in. But interesting to see how those numbers are shaking.
Yeah, Métis Gardens also, just a lovely
Beautiful.
place. Yeah. We could just do ads of places to vacation. Chantal, I want to get your take before I get
172 is the magic number. The Libs up to 102. 70 more to go.
Looking projected to lose as many as 11 seats. That's pretty devastating.
The Bloc itself believed it could lose 10 to 15 seats. Of course, that wasn't the hope, but this is the best beginning of night
for the Liberals
in Quebec that
right.
I have seen in decades.
How many decades?
I don't think I was around because Jean Chrétien never won a majority of Quebec seats.
Yeah.
So you go back all the way to Jean Chrétien, and Brian Mulroney wiped them off the map. So I think you'd have to go back to Pierre Trudeau. But it's early.
It's early. It's early. But that's still.
It's
early. But it's still fascinating that someone who. At the beginning of the campaign was not speaking French as well as he was at the end, would be suddenly that appealing to Quebecers, if this is where things go.
But I'm also wondering, and the numbers are still coming, whether the Conservatives are also having a difficult night in Quebec.
Okay.
Because at this point, they are under...
Well, I took 2 years of it. I don't fucking know shit.
In percentage points, they're below 20%. That's not when you get votes but not seats. You need to get over that. And at this point, who knows? Because we're still missing a
we may or may not be doing Live Music Monday. If we do, it's going to be Best of Coachella, the final night.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
No. And if that is true, that the Conservatives are going to suffer in Quebec, that, I think, speaks to some of the choices that Pierre Poilievre made. But we will talk more about that as results firm up. Ian has some results, though, now.
Yeah, let's look at your home province, Manitoba, and in particular 3 ridings in Winnipeg that are reporting results right now. This one would be, if the Liberals were able to keep it through the night, a pickup. I'm laughing because, of course, I can read the numbers just as well as you can. It's really early. What's
one of 67 polls reporting.
It's, an NDP incumbent is in second place, is that the Raul Walia, 23 years old, got the nomination here in the old days, December 2024. Remember then? Remember the prospects for the Liberals at that point? So I don't think when he came the candidate, he expected to be possible that he could go to Ottawa. We'll see what happens in Winnipeg Centre as the evening unfolds. Let's go now to Winnipeg West and see what's happening there. And Marty Moran, Conservative incumbent, is in a lead, not a huge lead. Doug Elson has been the MP here before. This is the 3rd time, I think, these two very well-known politicians, and Doug Elson also an ER doc, so well known for that as well, are facing off in Winnipeg West. So another one we're going to be looking at very closely. And in Winnipeg North, no surprise to see Kevin Lamoureux, the incumbent.
Lamoureux.
I'll tell you what is interesting is that if you look at the percentage,
you do and you'll clean it up.
Around the NDP was in second place with 28% of the vote. Their support right now has plummeted to 8%, and almost all of that has been picked up, and this is early, I know, not by the Liberals, but by the Conservatives.
Right.
So just kind of interesting. That's, we would expect.
Light one up, tip one back. I'm not high enough for this shit.
Riding. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yes.
But it's fascinating to me to see the change in support between the NDP and the Conservatives.
Yeah, Kevin Lamoureux, hugely popular in that riding, so we'll see whether that continues. Just want to tell you that the Liberals continue to do well here tonight, but also want to tell you that there are 85 ridings where it is very close still. And so we might well be in for a long night as we get through all of these results and track towards being able to project a government. Catherine Cullen.
We're going to go back to Nova Scotia for just one riding, Rosie, one that we knew was going to be a real scrap tonight, but we've got a projected elected in South Shore, St. Margaret's. Let's take a look.
A riding is the equivalent of like a congressional district for us.
Projected elected in that riding. Rick Perkins took this riding from the Liberals in the last election, but it was not to be for him this time out. He had an additional challenge because, of course, the NDP did not run an official candidate in this riding, so there will be questions, I think, about what happened to that vote. Although when you look at the NDP vote across the board, it hasn't been all that substantial across the country, Rosemary, so perhaps that won't have been that much of a factor. But nonetheless, Jessica Fancy Landry projected.
Jessica Fancy.
That's a
You can get fancy with me.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to show you a board right now to try and explain where we're at and what you should be watching for as the results continue to tick in from polls right across the country at this stage. This is where the Liberals are right now. They are leading or elected in 123 ridings. Let me show you the next piece of that. That is the pink seats that you're seeing there. Those are incumbents. Those are the seats that they would have to now win 51 more if they want to track towards a majority. And if they were to win those 51 incumbency, as we've been talking about, does give you an advantage. But if they were to win that, they would surpass the 172 they need to get to a majority. So they need to hold those leading and elected in 123 that you see on your screen. They need to hold the 51 incumbents that are there.
Yeah, so these counts are fluctuating. This is not 126, 127. Like, they're just in the lead in those seats, and those can flip throughout the night.
Watching some of those, and I think David Cochran wants to talk to us now.
Yeah, so just to give you an idea of how close this is, when we were talking about Atlantic Canada earlier, it was 22-10, right? 22 Liberals, 10 Conservatives.
I think they're putting them up just as soon as they're getting data from each one.
So is running for the Liberals, where the advanced polls offer the hope of them getting over the top there. And as Central Nova, the advanced polls have put Sean Fraser back in the lead, as that has now gone to red. So we're to a 23-9 count in Atlantic Canada now. You move into Quebec. Chantal was saying this is the best early results you've seen for the I'm in Ontario. My apologies to the people of Quebec. It was the best night she's seen for Liberals in a long time at the start of an election. Well, look at this, what we're still waiting for. You know, Rosie was saying the Liberals are up seats. We still don't have...
The orange is the National Democratic Party.
The Liberals are going to be strong, and in some of these battlegrounds on the South Shore in particular, where the Liberals and the Bloc are in a fight that really could determine whether the Liberals can get to this majority government that the polls have been suggesting was available for them in this election.
Rightly described as Social Democrat, the party sits at the center left to the left wing of the Canadian political spectrum.
More red getting there in the GTA, but still not out into sort of the Halton region and the Peel region. We're still waiting on a lot of seats there. And when you go into southwestern Ontario, look, we are seeing red in Windsor, red in London, and we're still waiting on some of southwestern Ontario where Liberals are hoping to gain. I'll show you one last thing before I send it back to Rosie, and that's in Manitoba, because the urban centres are where the Liberals are going to, this majority is going to live and die tonight. There's only 2 ridings in from Winnipeg, so still a lot to come in the big cities of Canada. Rosie?
Thank you very much for that, David Cochran. And some news for all of you.
I've got cat voting.
Get ready. Our CBC News decision desk is ready to make a call.
What was this?
Canada's next government will be a Liberal government. It is not yet clear at this hour whether it will be a minority or majority. Because of some of those close races we were talking about, this marks a 4th Liberal mandate. Very rare in Canadian politics. But the Liberal Party, led by Mark Carney, has pulled it off. A stunning reversal, a Liberal comeback with a first-time politician as leader. You're looking live there at the Liberal Party headquarters right now.
Mark Carney will be the Prime Minister of Canada.
Okay, remarkable, as we said, reversal in political fortunes for the Liberal Party that was thought perhaps to be left for dead just months ago, has now made this incredible comeback, remarkable comeback, and is going to form government yet again with someone who has never been elected to public office before. We're waiting on results from his riding tonight. Mark Carney, the 24th Prime Minister, will now be the 25th Prime Minister as well. Let me show you how it happened. Here is the vote share, the share of vote that we've been showing you through the night. The Liberals over 50%, the Conservatives at 38.6%, which again, we've been saying in a regular election would have been a remarkable share of the vote for them. But the story really in what's happening with the other parties on the board there, the Bloc and the NDP, not even reaching 5% at this stage. Let me show you the seat change that allows us to call for a Liberal government.
Yep, there you go.
23 seats leading and elected in. The Liberals are up. The Conservatives down 5. The Bloc down 12 at this stage, which, as Chantal was saying, was not out of the realm of possibility even for people inside the Bloc, but would be very disappointing for them. And the NDP now down 6. The NDP right now on your screen only leading or elected in 2 ridings. Remember, you need 12 to get.
So yeah, Parliament's like Congress.
I'm going to go over to David to give.
But whoever gets the most.
Well, look, it's a bit of what we were at the risk of repeating myself, but that's going to happen a lot.
Becomes the Prime Minister.
There are 32 seats in Atlantic.
Objectively,
the path to majority for the Liberals was 25. Right now, they sit at 23, and I can tell you, this riding in Terra Nova. My buddy Terry Roberts is at the watching party for the Conservative candidate. He says the air has gone out of the place because the advanced polls are coming in and the lead is shrinking. The Liberals might get to 24, not the 25. We said they need it for a majority, but that gets them a little bit closer. We go into Quebec, you see a lot of red in a lot of places, and you're going to see even more red in the island of Montreal. Right now, we had said that the Liberals needed 40 seats in Quebec to be on a path to a majority. They're sitting at 42. And Montreal and the North Shore and the South Shore haven't populated. Down to 40, I'm told. It's changing in real time. But still, the areas where they're strong still needs to come in. And that is a sign of hope for them. This is why you can see a minority government is almost certain at this point, or is certain at this point, and a majority government is still very much in play. Let's go into Ontario, and let's go to that key fortress, one of the 4 big pillars for the Liberal governments that have been elected since 2015. You still see a tremendous amount of red, certainly in the city of Toronto and in the areas around it, punctuated with a little bit of blue right now. The latest numbers I had is that the Liberals were at 56 seats and they're up 2 seats in Ontario. They're now at 63 seats in Ontario. We had said they needed to be at 80, so they're tracking towards that because a lot of these seats that will fill in over the course of the night, history and polling tells us that these will go Liberal. Now, let's go into Manitoba. The Liberals are currently sitting at 4 seats. We had suggested they would want to get 6 here to build up to a total of 10 on the prairies to be at a majority level. They have 1, obviously, in the north right now where they're leading in the NDP-held riding of Churchill. And they've got a couple of 3 seats right now in Winnipeg, and these are also seats where the Liberals will be competitive once we get more results throughout the night. So there is still upward potential for the Liberals as they try to get to that magic number of 172. And this helps right here. This is Desnethne Misnippy Churchill River. That's a Liberal leading in Saskatchewan. Do not adjust your set. That's a real thing. It's not officially projected elected yet, but this is a chance for the Liberals to break through in Saskatchewan for the first time since Ralph Goodale was a member of Parliament. And here in Alberta, you see a lot of blue. This is where a lot of the Conservative seats are coming from. But you got to zoom in on Calgary, where the Liberals are leading right now in Calgary Centre, and you got to zoom in on Edmonton. These are going to be the areas where the Liberals and the New Democrats are going to be in a battle. Those 2 seats that I just showed, those will be pickups right now for the Liberals if those results hold. So, Rosie, you can see a roughly even performance in the Atlantic with the potential of it to get back to where it was and maybe grow a little bit. A good early start in Quebec, decent numbers in Ontario, presence in the prairies. Still too early to say exactly what's going to happen in British Columbia. But, you know, BC often complains about being the empty net goal on election night. They might be the winner tonight when the results come in there.
Okay, and one of the reasons we have yet to call what kind of government Canada will have is because there are 100 ridings where the vote margin is about 100 votes. And that is simply too close to call for us and for the decision desk. And so we're going to wait to be sure before we get to that point. And that's partly why, as David said, British Columbia could be awfully important here tonight. You're always important, British Columbia, but even more important in terms of forming government for Mark Carney to
the
become,
PM
now
of Canada.
Minister right
I'm
now,
sorry,
Prime
Canada.
Minister, the 24th
Holiday.
Minister, and now for sure won't have any problems beating Charles Tupper's record of being Prime Minister for only 68 days. He's going to hang in there a little bit longer, apparently. Ashley Burke is at Liberal headquarters where they are dealing with the news and waiting for more news in terms of what kind of government they're going to have for this 4th mandate, Ashley.
You heard the reaction here in the room, Rosie. People erupted. They were cheering. They were excited. Just moments before that, we were talking about how they were feeling. People are still cautiously optimistic. People in the campaign, they want a majority government. And as you just mentioned, they're thinking, could it come down to BC? They're hoping that as the results come in, it'll become a bit clearer, but that's what they're waiting for. This, as you mentioned, is one of the most dramatic reversals in political fortune that we've seen in recent Canadian history. Just last year.
Hey, you're not welcome in Canada anymore. Just ask Josephus.
Justin Trudeau, after he left, Mark Carney came in.
They don't like your kind up there.
Watching him on the spot during this campaign, learn how to be a politician. You know, we've seen him have to try to figure out how to navigate photo ops. And over the campaign, we've seen him get more comfortable with that, including being in crowds and talking to people. But as
are we going to get a speech from Carney shortly?
Short of serving prime minister or not, 45 days he's been prime minister, and now Canadians tonight have decided that they want him to stay on and lead this country. After he's really been hammering home his message about during this campaign about who is best to deal with Donald Trump. Rosie?
Okay, Ashley Burke coming from Liberal headquarters where there are a lot of happy people there tonight, but we'll see how happy they are because we still have to call what kind of government Mark Carney is going to lead, a minority or a majority, but we should remind you that a fourth mandate like this, incredibly rare in Canadian politics. The last time was from 1993 to 2006 under 2 leaders, that was Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin. Some similarities here again because this is happening with 2 different leaders. Chantal, your thoughts?
But it is also that Mark Carney has succeeded in doing what John Turner and Kim Campbell could not.
You are right.
That is, become the new leader of a very unpopular government, get a boost in the poll. That's all par for the course. But to hold that lead long enough to not go in that portrait gallery as someone about whom the kids ask, who's that
guy? Yeah.
Right. That is quite an achievement when you go back 4 months to where we were. This is not the election night that anyone imagined we would have. And I'm guessing it's not the election night, looking at those numbers, that the NDP imagined either, or the Bloc.
No, pretty devastating numbers, and we'll come back to them. But I want to get Arif Virani in because you are a former Liberal cabinet minister. Still happy with that decision not to run, are you?
I'm very happy with that decision, as is my family. But, but I'm also equally delighted with what's transpiring. I mean, what we've seen is something that is truly quite remarkable.
Yes.
And I think what I'm really proud about tonight is Canadians, how strongly they came out to vote, what's been motivating them, but also just really discerning in terms of making choices based on what's on offer. You had an individual with a business background who had navigated 2 world economies through difficult crises, and you had another politician who was frankly still offering catchword phrases and running an election as if we were back in November or December. Things changed. Justin Trudeau is no longer around. The consumer carbon price no longer around. And Donald Trump entered in a big way.
Yeah.
And we saw other conservative politicians in this country pivot, like provincially, Doug Ford in this province. We saw an inability for a pivot on the part of Pierre Poilievre. And I think you're seeing the results. People have decided that they want mature professional leadership, and that's what they're getting with Mark Carney. And I think it's a really important time for Canada because there's a lot of hard work to be done.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of government we end up with here, Andrew, because you know, that also sends a message. If Canadians opt for a minority government, that also is a message to the Liberals and to Conservatives. But what do you make of the fact that this has happened? Because it is right, it is a remarkable thing.
Yeah, it would not have happened without Donald Trump, I don't think. If Mark Carney had simply come in and said, well, I'm changed, I'm a new prime minister, I'm not sure that would have been enough to carry the day. I'm not sure if Trump alone would be enough to carry the day, though. I think it's the combination of, so far as the first part of the campaign in particular, focused on Trump as the issue and therefore focused on leadership and the relative qualities of the two-party leaders. That was clearly to Carney's advantage. But I think probably what put him over the top was he was also enough change for enough people.
Right.
He wasn't, on its own, it wouldn't be enough change, but the two things together, I think, was enough to put him over the top.
Althea, what do you make of the win?
I agree with everything Andrew said, but I would add, basically, it's New Democrats that have handed Mark Carney the ability to become prime minister, remain prime minister. And for them, the fear was, Donald Trump, but also Pierre Poilievre. They decided that they really feared Pierre Poilievre more than they feared another Liberal government. And so they've basically abandoned their party in droves and possibly handing Mark Carney a majority government. So it's not... you guys should send the NDP a thank you.
I want beef pepperoni.
I think progressive voters in my riding of Tyack on Park Delhi Park, and good luck to the team there. But I think progressive voters.
I love some beef pepperoni.
And that was simply that in the face of what the country is facing, we need to select a prime minister and a government. That's more important than anything else. That relates to the CBC, that relates to protecting linguistic rights, that relates to protecting human rights. And you had a choice between somebody who would empower Donald Trump and somebody who would confront Donald Trump. That's the choice that Canadians have made tonight, and I think they made the right choice.
Okay, and the NDP sitting right now at 7, leading our elected. Let's get some more information about how we got here, how we were able to call a Liberal win tonight. Catherine Cullen's got some of those results.
Yeah, and obviously, Rosie, part of this picture has to do with Quebec and what has happened with the Bloc Québécois. So let's take a look. The Liberals up 12 seats. Yes, one of them coming from the Conservatives, but most of that, the vast majority, at the expense of the Bloc, again, based on the numbers that we're seeing early. Let's see where it's happening. We're going to take a quick zip around the suburbs of the island of Montreal. We're going to start in Thérèse de Blainville, and you can see here the Liberal candidate in the lead. Let's go to Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. We're going to stay on the North Shore. And again, the Liberal candidate with the Bloc Québécois incumbent in second. We'll head down to the South Shore, Longueuil, Saint-Hubert, and again, yes, the Liberal candidate in the lead with the Bloc incumbent in second. That pattern being repeated both north and south of the island of Montreal. Liberals looking like they're going to gain at the expense of the Bloc. That's a big part of what's happening tonight.
And we'll look at more. We'll look at more of those results as they firm up, and we can project elected. Ian Hannah-Mansing's got some of those right now. Some results anyway.
Yeah. So not projected elected, but still interesting trend lines. And let's start with Churchill. Kiwanatuk-Aski. Nikki Ashton has been the MP here for the NDP since 2008. In 2015, she almost lost to Rebecca Chartrand. There was a difference of 3 percentage points. And right now, early, but still, when you look at those numbers, fairly significant lead at this point for the Liberal candidate. This is Kildonan St. Paul, one of the Winnipeg ridings, and Raquel Dancho is the incumbent for the Conservatives. She's won 2 elections in a row. Thomas Nakin's a relative newcomer. Hard to find information about him, but he was acclaimed as a candidate when the polls suggested...
You're fucking reporters. That's your job.
He's in the lead there. And let's just look at Regina Wascana. This is interesting. It's super close. When I started speaking a few minutes ago, Jeffrey Walters was in the lead. The big question in Regina Wascana for a lot of people is the number of times the Liberals won there. Was it Ralph Goodale that was the factor, or was it Liberal support? And a lot of people wondering what's going to happen there tonight. As you can see, it is close, but the Conservatives are in the lead in Ralph Goodale's old riding.
Okay, Adrian, you've got some results too.
Certainly. Catherine showed you some seat changes. I'd like to show you some vote changes in Ontario. Why don't we have a little look at this? So, Liberals up 9.5 percentage points. Conservatives also up 9.0, but look at the NDP, down 12.7. That is where the votes are largely coming from. So what does that look like? Let's start with Sault Ste. Marie, Algoma. This is a riding that Terry Sheehan is ahead by 428. Interesting, because the Liberals only picked it up by 247 last time. Still just 35 of 287 polls reporting. If we move on to the Bay of Quinte, this is a riding we've been keeping an eye on. The Liberals picked it up in 2015. They wanted it desperately because this is the sort of riding they need if they want to get a majority. They've got a lead of 193 with just 15 polls reporting. And the last one, which is a big one for Fortress Toronto, if you will, is Leslie Church and Toronto St. Paul's with a lead of 701. She lost that to Dawn Stewart in
Georgie, thank you for the resub.
600 some votes. So they're counting on that lead.
And remember, that is part of the story.
I was adding the final videos to the Coachella playlist that we're going to be partaking on here shortly.
Tell you what kind of government Mark Carney will lead. But yes, in case you missed the big moment, the Liberals have secured a 4th mandate.
I'd like to take a corny
waiting to see whether he
speech,
will be
if that's going to happen.
In Nepean. Ferrani, what are you hearing from your Liberal friends? Are you getting lots of texts? Are people? Are they thinking that a majority is still within reach here? What are they saying?
I think obviously a majority government is aspirational. That's what we would like to have. You heard Dominic talk about that earlier, but I think people are elated. I mean, we know where the party was prior to Christmas.
Yeah.
We know where we were in early January. The fact that it's been such a remarkable swing is a testament to optimism. It's a testament to Mark Carney's leadership. But again, it's a testament to Canadian voters. And I think, when I think back about what's really changed in the last little while, I think if you're looking at somebody who you need to stand up to an American threat that is as clear and demonstrative as Donald Trump, and you have somebody who's posturing themselves that they want to be that person, Pierre Poilievre, who shows an inability to stand up to Preston Manning and Danielle Smith, I think you don't have the right individual. When you have somebody who still continues to speak in 3-word slogans as opposed to presenting an accurate plan, an outlined plan, a professionalized plan, you don't have the right person. Canadians have realized this, and as I said earlier on the show, I think Quebecers have realized this, notwithstanding linguistic limitations, notwithstanding concerns about Francophone rights. Those are all very valid concerns. But when you're facing a threat of that size from the American neighbor, you need to put that aside and vote in terms of selecting a leader.
Threat from the American neighbor. That's wild to hear.
A majority government would allow us to have that strong mandate that Prime Minister...
The Right Honorable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of the Dominion of Canada.
To make progress.
Althea made a little...
Did you like that?
Squint there, winced a little bit.
Put some mustard on
Let
it.
her talk before I get some more results.
Well, I was going to say on the whole, who we should give a testament to, it's all the Liberal backbenchers.
You're welcome.
Who tried to get Justin Trudeau to leave. Chrystia Freeland, who finally...
Are we gonna get a corny speech?
Had not left. There is no way we would see the result that we are seeing right now.
Is he gonna speak?
Even with Donald Trump in the White House. So there's other people.
There's lots of things going on. Yeah.
Create the scenario that we find ourselves in at the moment. And also, pretty soon people won't be able to vote, so you don't need to convince them to vote for the Liberal Party.
Yes, you've already won. You've already won.
The votes have already been cast?
We're just waiting to see. Yes, we're just waiting waiting to see how it goes. But it's hard to shake it off. I understand. I think Ian has some early results.
Yeah, in British Columbia, as we've said, the Conservatives, Liberals, and NDP have done well there. They certainly did well there in 2020.
I would assume you would get a concession speech.
Particularly for the Liberals and the Conservatives to pick up seats. Let's look at some early results with some potential changes. North Island.
Or is that even a thing in Canada? Because, like, he's still going to be in Parliament, right?
Right now in the lead there.
Because he won. He'll win his election.
At in the interior, Silkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay. Again, relatively close, but this is would be a pickup for the Conservatives if they could hang on to this.
So it's not like he's conceding defeat in an election.
Tennis player and competed in Wimbledon and at the U.S. Open. I did not know that, and I find that really interesting. And South Surrey, White Rock, obviously really low numbers. We just wanted to show this to you because it would be a change if this were to hold. And interesting, Ernie Klassen was acclaimed as the candidate. I think we're seeing a lot of that across the country, right, where candidates who were acclaimed when maybe nobody else really wanted the nomination. I'm not sure if that's what happened there, but you know, some of those people are going to end up going to the House of Commons.
Okay. All right, let's have a look at someone who is having a difficult night, but at least his own riding is secure. That's Yves-François Blanchet in the riding of Belleuil-Chambly. He has won handily in that riding, but he is probably not enjoying the evening so far, given where things are tracking for the Bloc. Remember, at last vote, the Bloc Québécois had 35 seats, and right now they're tracking towards 23. We'll continue to watch some of those numbers because, as we've told you, the vote is changing. It is close still in many, many ridings across the country, and that is why we are waiting to tell you whether you have a minority or majority government. Rafi Bouchikanian, I can see you there. Yves-François Blanchet has been elected. We have the Decision Desk has projected him elected, but not a strong evening so far for the Bloc Québécois. What are you hearing?
It is not, and you'll forgive me. I was just turning around to try to figure out who they were cheering there. There have been a lot of cheers for people you'd expect to get reelected, like Yves-François Blanchet and a couple of others like Alexis Brunel-Duceppe, you know, like a stalwart of the party. But this is not the results they're looking for. 23 seats, I mean, that's kind of a number where if the Liberals get a majority, that's not a great night for the Bloc Québécois. They're trying to cheer up here. They're trying to be, you know, enthusiastic. They did have one major win. We were talking about Gaspésie earlier. Well, they won that riding. Radio-Canada announced that they project a win for Alexis Deschênes, that star candidate, who would be taking that riding from Diane Le Boutillier, a Liberal who has been there for a while, and the crowd erupted into enthusiastic cheers here when that happened. So that was one that's a take from the Liberals, so that's a real reason for them to be happy. But for the rest of it, I mean, they're really just sort of trying to hold on to hope. We've got a little bit of a show here. They keep inviting incumbents or candidates to come up and talk to the crowd. There's an MC asking them all sorts of questions about, you know, how did your campaign go and what do you think of Yves-François Blanchet's messages, and they're just sort of trying to hold on to hope at this point.
Okay, Rafi Bouchikanian, thank you so much from Montreal. We will be back to you, of course. Perhaps we can share in Quebec changed. Let me know when we can go to that. But
I like saying their name
Chantal,
wrong.
if I can. Yves-François Blanchet. This is his third election, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yes, and he probably is feeling better when he compares his fate to what could be happening to the NDP.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone at this point is looking to challenge the leadership of Yves-François Blanchet. A lot of people in Quebec over the campaign were saying, well, we're going to lend our vote to the...
There you get auto-modded.
Because of special circumstances, but it wasn't a judgment on the Bloc Québécois that they were making. Now, that being said, what also created this dynamics in Quebec in particular, where Pierre Poilievre never left.
I'm sorry. I can't help myself.
Was always in third place, was this notion...
I'm a horrible person. Cancel Justin.
Surge, not because the Bloc was doing so well, but because a lot of Quebec voters looked at the numbers.
I'm trying to hang on for a Mark Carney victory speech.
The rest of
I really want to get to music.
Yeah, we don't want him.
Yeah.
So we are going to build
Really what?
a wall by voting for the Bloc. And of course, that wall crumbled the second.
I wish I could pronounce it correct. What, the Bloc le Blec Bloc.
Yeah, the shot at winning.
Bloc.
Then they built a wall
Oh my God.
Quebec is really what happened to keep out Pierre Poilievre. Yeah.
I mean, they're looking at 440 seats.
Okay, Flash, that's, I can't do live reaction.
Okay, some other good news for the Liberals this hour. Let me show you who has just been elected as a member of Parliament for the very
that is pretty good.
That is Mark Carney, Canada's Prime Minister. This is his first time running for public office. He was tempted many times, but never.
Barbara Ball looks.
He has.
She looks cute.
Won handily in his.
I'm sorry, she could have been my GOP mommy.
This is. I can't remember what I have this trivia somewhere, but the last time that a prime minister's riding was in the nation's capital. I'll go find that for you. But Mark Carney winning his own riding tonight. That is the first time that he has won public office. The first time he has sought public office, and now he can also not only be prime minister but be elected as prime minister, something that he wasn't before. That is Liberal headquarters, where they are waiting for more information, obviously, about.
I do too, and that's why it always comes out racist.
They will celebrate tonight. David Cochran.
Yeah, you know, Rosie, I'm beginning to think Mark Carney's never going to be the finance minister at this rate, because that was always the rumor on his entry into Canadian politics. I want to go through sort of where the Liberals are at this stage, to support the reason why we have projected a Liberal government and to show why a majority is still very much in play. And I'm going to go all the way back to Newfoundland and Labrador just to show you something here. This is Terra Nova and the Peninsulas. This has been a Conservative seat throughout the night, but just have a look at this. It's now down to a 28-vote lead. This has been happening in a lot of the ridings in Atlantic Canada where the advance vote is being counted late and where the Liberals did a really good job of getting their vote in early over that Easter weekend. So with 12 polls reporting, you can see Anthony Germain, the Liberal candidate there, chewing up that Conservative lead and getting now within less than 30 votes. There's been similar stories. We saw that happen in Central Nova, in Nova Scotia, where Sean Fraser was way down for a period of time, but as more and more advance polls have come in, he's moved into the lead, and also in New Brunswick, in Miramichi, Grand Lake, where the advanced polls have put the Liberals into the lead there. So the Liberals started the night with 24 seats that they held as the 32 in Atlantic Canada. They're back at 24 with a chance, if Terra Nova flips, to get it to that 25 that we talked about on the path to majority earlier. So still a chance for them to hit the threshold here. We'll go into Quebec, where the last I checked, because the numbers are changing soon, they were at 42 seats. They're now at 44 seats in Quebec, 13 of them pickups. And look at this. We're still waiting for a little bit of data on the island of Montreal, only really in one riding. There is a Conservative.
That was looking close earlier on, but apparently the Liberals are going to pull off a...
We'll have to see where that goes. But either way, the Liberals at this point in the night, with still a lot of votes counted,
a wave election.
The 40-vote threshold they needed to be at in Quebec. Now, Ontario, a lot of votes being counted, slightly different story. They are at 69 seats of the 120.
Nice.
They are down 6 right now. You're seeing some movement here in the GTA seats that have been the stronghold of the Liberals. Oops, I didn't mean to click on Kitchener, but they're doing well.
Fucking Kitchener.
But there's only about 11% of the vote counted in Ontario. And again, this is going to be a pattern throughout the night with the Liberal vote. They are widely believed by all the campaigns, we've heard this from Conservatives as well, to have outperformed their opponents in the advance vote, and in a lot of cases that comes in last. So while they're at 150 seats there right now, the last time I checked, there were still about a dozen seats that we were waiting on results for that all the campaigns believe are going to go Liberal. So you can bear that in mind as a reason why we have not yet ruled out the possibility of a Liberal majority government. In Manitoba, we had set the threshold at 6 for them to be on the path for majority. They're right at 6 right now. They've got 2 pickups. They're leading right now in Winnipeg West, which was a Conservative seat. They are not leading in Winnipeg Centre, but they have picked up, or at least leading, in the Northern Manitoba riding right now. In Saskatchewan, we said 1. All they needed was 1. Well, guess what? It looks like they have 1. They're up there. They're leading right now in Desnethe. That's Buckley Boulanger, as Ian was telling us. They're nowhere right now in the Saskatoon ridings, though Mark Carney did go there, and Saskatoon University was a riding that the Liberals had talked about as a potential gain for them. They've held right now 2 of their 3 in the north. Nunavut is still trending NDP. I don't want to ruin the NDP's night, but they are no longer ahead in Wetaskiwin, as we predicted earlier. But right now,
Wetaskiwin.
we have 2 seats in Alberta.
What happened to you? Falling off?
Calgary right now. So Calgary and McKnight, where George Chahal was the incumbent, and Calgary Centre, which was on their target list. They're leading there now. They are not ahead in Edmonton. That is where
I'm not curious.
That was Randy Boissonneau's seat in Edmonton Centre. That is blue right now in Edmonton Strathcona, maybe the safest NDP seat around. We don't have results from that yet. So with a lot still to come, Rosie, in Vancouver area in particular, the Liberals right now, they only have 8 in BC, but look at this, right? We got a lot to come, but of the 8 that are reporting, the Liberals have 3 pickups, and we're still not fully in to the Vancouver core and the suburbs there, and that is the Liberal stronghold in British Columbia. So they're at 155 right now at this point in time. There's still upside growth there for them. You can see a path to the delta of 17 that they need, and it might actually include Delta, which is a seat they hold on the Lower Mainline.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, is Carney going to speak soon?
Part of the reason why that
or is he going to wait until they know if there's a majority government?
Let's talk about deltas and deltas, you know, like sort of thing. Don't worry.
I got a lot of people talking to me. That was a funny one. Thank you.
Sure.
There are 47 ridings still where the vote is under 100. So that gives you a sense of why we are still holding off in determining what kind of government this is. But as David rightly points out, it is still possible, and we'll show you more about that in a moment. And just because I have a lot of good colleagues who heard me, the only other Prime Minister to hold a seat in the Ottawa area was John A. Macdonald. So Mark Carney becomes number 2. Ian, over to you.
So interesting things happening in British Columbia in terms of the vote. And let's look at the vote change.
Nope, not going to. I'm ready for Live Music Monday. I'm done with politics. I can't do it anymore. I got you an animal video. I think I've shown this one before, but I came across it again. It's too good not to show again. So let's fucking do it. Well, that's something I can show tomorrow on the Troll Patrol. That's perfectly doable. We'll show Corny's speech.
这实在是很无聊哎，这样也行。
This motherfucker fronting. I've played this one before. But it's too funny. I came across it again. Smart little fuck. Ah.
这实在是很无聊哎，这样也行。
If you're watching on YouTube, Kick, DLive, Facebook, other things that I'm forgetting about, podcast, go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm Justin Freakin. We'll see you tomorrow night on the Troll Patrol, live.